Chapter 78. He Xianyao wholeheartedly wanted to marry Hu Jinyao. She had visited the Hua family many times in the past few years. She was beautiful and had a sweet tongue. Mrs. Hua was usually a cold person. She was also quite friendly to her. The He family and the Hua family had business dealings. She had always felt that she was the best match for Hu Jinyao. She was disappointed for a long time when she didn't see Hu Jinyao in Rong City. That was why she agreed to come to Lin City. She didn't expect to meet Hu Jinyao in Rong City, but in Lin City. She didn't dare to recognize him at first. After all, she hadn't seen Hu Jinyao for 2 years. But now that she saw Hu Jinyao's face, how could she not recognize him? Brother Jinyao, I didn't expect to see you here. He Xianyao was not as calm as she was a moment ago. She was just watching from the sidelines. She looked shy like a young girl. Hu Jinyao glanced at her. She looked familiar. He immediately remembered who the woman in front of him was. But he didn't recognize her. Who are you? Brother Jinyao, I'm Xianyao. He Xianyao. Don't you remember? I'm the youngest daughter of the He family. You've worked with my brother before. He Xianyao blushed and looked at Hu Jinyao with her eyes full of charm. If it was another man, he might have been tempted. But Hu Jinyao wasn't an ordinary man. He Xianyao. He knew. She was He Shuangkai's sister. The only daughter of the He family. Yes. Don't you remember me? Auntie Hua said that our names were both pronounced Yao. She said we were destined to be together. Although the characters were different, the pronunciation was the same. She had always regarded this as a special fate between her and Hu Jinyao. Hu Jinyao's mouth twitched. There were only a few commonly used Chinese characters. There were more than 1 billion people in the country. How many people had the same name? I don't remember. Hu Jinyao didn't want to talk to He Xianyao anymore. This sudden turn of events left Qiu Zhenjiao dumbfounded. She didn't know what was going on. Of course, she knew He Xianyao. Her family background was no less than hers. However, such a person treated Hu Jinyao with such an attitude. She looked at Hu Jinyao. Why hadn't she heard that the man Su Qingsang married was very powerful? Didn't you say that you also married a small clerk? How could I not remember? He Xianyao didn't want to give up. It wasn't easy for her to meet Hu Jinyao here. She had to make a deeper impression on him. Seeing that Hu Jinyao was about to leave, she subconsciously wanted to hold his hand. She recalled the conversation between Qiu Zhenjiao and Hu Jinyao. Jinyao, did you just say that you're married? How could this be? The upper class of Rong City hadn't heard anything about such a big event. He Xianyao thought about Su Qingsang's face. She wasn't particularly pretty. It was just above average. Why? Why does Brother Jinyao want to be with such a woman? Yes, I'm married. Hu Jinyao could tell that He Xianyao was interested in him. So what? Why so sudden? The shyness on He Xuanyao's face disappeared. Her pale little face was full of injuries. Is that your wife? Do Uncle Hua and Auntie Hua know? He Xianyao thought about what Qiu Zhenjiao had said about Su Qingsang's identity. Do they know who she is? Chapter 79. Hu Jinyao's straightforward and impolite attitude made He Xuanyao's face turn pale again. Brother Jinyao. You. Su Qingsang had already changed her clothes and came out. She stood there slim and graceful. The black suit suited her very well. It made her look more sexy and less delicate than usual. The white suit in front of her also suited her very well. Su Qingsang's figure was not bad. Although not particularly tall, her figure was slim and perfectly proportioned. Su Qingsang heard a dispute outside, but she didn't hear it clearly. She saw Hu Jinyao walking towards her, and He Xuanyao's pale face. She didn't know what was going on. Very pretty. Hu Jinyao didn't give her a chance to talk to the 2 weird women. He held her waist and let her look at herself in the mirror. How about I wrap all 3 of them? I don't think that's necessary. The price of these clothes was more than 5 figures. She was just a doctor who had just started working. Why would she need such nice clothes? Just wrap them up if you like them. You. Su Qingsang looked at Hu Jinyao, and then at the environment in front of her. She didn't want to hurt him, so she tiptoed and whispered into Hu Jinyao's ear. Didn't you just start working? Just buy them for a year. Her voice was very soft, and her hot breath brushed against Hu Jinyao's ear. He was a little tempted. He almost couldn't hear what Su Qingsang said. When he realized what she meant, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He put his arm around Su Qingsang's waist and whispered into her ear. I went on a business trip a few days ago. The deal was good. The boss agreed to give me a bonus. Well, you can buy them if you like them. It's okay. Su Qingsang turned to look at him. The flattery in Hua Jinyao's eyes was too obvious. For a moment, she felt as if she had been entangled by a golden retriever. Save for a rainy day. Be thrifty, don't you know? As soon as he got his bonus, he spent it all. She was buying a ring and clothes. What if she needed money in the future? I know. I have you. Hua Jinyao whispered into her ear. The money I earn is for my wife to spend. I'll be happy to spend it all. His warm breath brushed against her ear. Su Qingsang remembered how he had talked to her like this last night, when he had done it with her. She felt uncomfortable and took a step back. I'll go change my clothes. Hua Jinyao had a smile in his eyes. Su Qingsang was good at everything, but she was too thin-skinned. It didn't matter. He would do it a few more times next time. When she got used to it, she would get used to it. Yi Xuanyao's eyes turned red when she saw how close they were. Brother Jinyao. When Su Qingsang entered the fitting room, she heard the voice and turned around. She had heard it just now, but she thought she had heard it wrong through the door. Hua Jinyao's face darkened. He turned to look at Yi Xuanyao. Who are you calling? Brother Jinyao, how can you do this to me? She had liked him for so many years and waited for him for so many years. Was this how he treated her? Jinyao. Su Qingsang didn't go to get changed. Instead, she stood in front of Hua Jinyao and asked, do you know each other? How could Qiu Zhenjiu's friend know Hua Jinyao? No. Hua Jinyao looked calm, and looked at Yi Xuanyao as if she was a stranger. I don't know you. And please call me Mr. Hua. Brother Jinyao. Yi Xuanyao looked hurt. What are you talking about? Jinyao. It didn't seem like she didn't know him. Su Qingsang looked at Hua Jinyao, and then at Yi Xuanyao. Chapter 80. Hua Jinyao turned around and looked at Su Qingsang. The smile returned to his face. Nothing. She mistook me for someone else. Brother Jinyao. How could she mistake him for someone else? Yi Xuanyao took a step forward, as if to prove that she was telling the truth. Hua Jinyao tilted his head and glanced at her. His eyes were cold and devoid of warmth. It only took him a second to change his smiling face into a cold one. Miss, please don't call me that. I said I don't know you. You, Xuanyao. Qiu Zhenjiu seemed to understand what was going on. Please leave. Your behavior has interfered with my business, Hua Jinyao said bluntly. Yi Xuanyao didn't expect that after studying for 2 years, she would end up like this. Her eyes were red. She burst into tears, turned around and ran out. Xuanyao. Qiu Zhenjiu glanced at Hua Jinyao and Su Qingsang and hurried out. Su Qingsang was left looking at Hua Jinyao inquiringly. You really don't know her? Of course I don't know her. But they worked together. Well, they didn't really know each other. Why did she call your name if she doesn't know you? Does she know that your name is Jinyao? She mistook me for someone else. Why are you calling me so intimately? Big brother Jinyao? She felt goosebumps all over her body. Hua Jinyao looked at her, and suddenly put his face close to hers. What? Is Qingsang jealous? I'm not. Who would be jealous of him? I'm not jealous. Why do you smell so sour? Hua Jinyao was back to his usual carefree self. His low voice was a little playful. The smile in his eyes was so obvious, and there was a hint of teasing in them. Su Qingsang couldn't help but step back. She couldn't stand the teasing and curious eyes of the surrounding shop assistants. I'm going to change. She quickly went into the fitting room, only to find that she seemed to have been tricked by Hua Jinyao again. He still didn't tell her why the woman knew him, and called him Brother Jinyao. When Su Qingsang came out, Hua Jinyao had asked someone to wrap up the clothes she had just tried on. She was really not used to this. Even when she was shopping with Shi Mingwan, she wasn't this crazy. Moreover, her concept of consumption was similar to Shi Mingwan's. She didn't care about famous brands, she only wanted comfort. However, Hua Jinyao was quite interested. After shopping for clothes, he wanted to go shopping for shoes. Su Qingsang stayed in the hospital every day, and only liked to wear flat shoes. There were some high-heeled shoes, but not many. Seeing that Hu Jingyao was so interested in shopping with her, she had a feeling that she would be a wet blanket if she didn't go with him. Su Qingseng had forgotten about her encounter with He Xianyao. That little doubt was naturally suppressed in his heart. By the time Qiu Zhenjiu reached home, the rest of the Qiu family had already gone to bed. Qiu Yanba had just returned from outside. Qiu Zhenjiu's eyes lit up when she saw him. "Brother, did you go out with Sister Peixian?" "Yes." Qiu Yanba nodded. Su Peixian was his fiancée. Naturally, he had to spend more time with her. "Brother, do you know who Su Qingsang's husband is?" "Su Qingsang?" Qiu Yanba thought about the day he saw Su Qingsang in Hu Jinyao's arms, cuddling up to him shyly. He couldn't tell what he was feeling, so he answered absent-mindedly, "What's wrong? Isn't he just a small clerk?" "A small clerk? Are you sure?" Qiu Zhenjiu thought about He Xuanyao's reaction that night. Chapter 81. Qiu Zhenjiu told him what had happened that night. She looked at Qiu Yanba's increasingly serious face and said, "Brother, do you think Su Qingsang did it on purpose? Did she deliberately not let others know who her man was? She thought it was impossible. If Hu Jinyao's identity was really extraordinary, why would he like Su Qingsang? He Xianyao was much better than Su Qingsang, whether it was her family background, appearance or anything else." Qiu Yanba ignored his sister's words. He thought of Old Master Qiu and Old Master Li's repeated questions. He Xianyao was from Rong City, and Hu Jinyao said he had nothing to do with the Hu family. If Hu Jinyao was really from the Hu family, then why did he suddenly appear in Lin City? "Brother." Qiu Zhenjiu said something else, but Qiu Yanba didn't have time to listen. He looked at Qiu Zhenjiu and said, "Zhenjiu, listen to me. Stay away from Su Qingsang next time." "Why?" Qiu Zhenjiu didn't like hearing that. She and Su Peixian were good friends. Although Su Peixian had never said anything to hurt Su Qingsang, having such a thing in the house was so annoying. "Nothing. Anyway, you don't have to worry about it." After saying that, Qiu Yanba hurried out the door. When Su Qingsang opened her eyes, her waist was still a little sore. She turned over and saw Hu Jinyao's enlarged face. It had been a few days, but she was still not used to it. She had to go to work today. Yesterday, she had repeatedly asked Hu Jinyao not to touch her. In the end, this guy was shameless and said he only wanted to do it once. But was his time a normal time? "Morning, wife." Hu Jinyao got up very early. He had already come back from his morning exercise. He had just taken a shower and felt refreshed. He could still smell the shower gel. Su Qingsang ignored him. Her waist was still sore, and her body didn't feel well. Hadn't this guy touched a woman in 800 years? "Wife." Hu Jinyao didn't care about her cold face at all. There was another smack on her cheek. "Why didn't you say good morning to me?" Su Qingsang's eyebrows twitched. She had begun to ignore the fact that he tended to be a large dog from time to time. "Wife." Seeing that she was about to get up, Hu Jinyao quickly pressed his body against hers to prevent her from moving. "You haven't said good morning to me yet." "Good morning. Can you get up now?" Su Qingsang's voice was a little hoarse, which made Hu Jinyao feel inexplicably sexy. "No." He shamelessly put all his limbs on her. "You haven't given me a good morning kiss yet." Su Qingsang couldn't take it anymore. Before she lost control of her anger, she pushed the man in front of her away and got up. "Wife." Behind her, Hu Jinyao looked at her with great sadness. "Shut up." Su Qingsang glared at him, not forgetting to wrap herself in the sheet. Hu Jinyao rubbed his chin and enjoyed the look of anger on Su Qingsang's face. "Honey, you don't actually have to cover it up. I've seen every part of you before." "Shut up," he added. "My wife is so beautiful. Even when you're angry, you're still so beautiful." Her eyes were filled with life, and she looked exceptionally spirited. "Hu Jinyao." Su Qingsang couldn't help but glare at him again, but her face was red. The burning heat lasted until she entered the bathroom. "Don't mind it, don't mind it." This man was just like that. He was glib-tongued and glib. She didn't want to take it seriously. Looking at herself in the mirror, Su Qingsang was stunned by the figure in it. Chapter 82. Hu Jinyao sensed that something was wrong with Su Qingsang. After coming out of the bathroom, she kept her head down, as if she was thinking about something. "What's wrong, honey?" Hua Jinyao stepped forward and put his arm around Su Qingsang's waist. As soon as he approached, Su Qingsang thought of the entanglement between them these past few days. She moved to the side without a trace. Nothing. Are you unhappy? He didn't do anything to her just now, did he? Hua Jinyao reached out to put his arm around her shoulder again. I'm late for work. Su Qingsang pushed his hand away. Her obvious resistance stunned Hua Jinyao for a moment. But only for a moment. Honey, are you angry? No. You're still denying it. Hua Jinyao stood in front of her. You are angry. Hua Jinyao. Su Qingsang didn't realize until this morning that she seemed to be indulging Hua Jinyao more and more. She began to get used to his existence. Apart from being surprised by the changes in her body, she was also a little frightened. She was used to staying in a fixed circle and living safely in this circle. But now, Hua Jinyao had become the biggest variable. He made her feel unsafe. Honey, tell me, why are you unhappy? Hua Jinyao reached out to hug her again. Su Qingsang wouldn't let him. I'm really not unhappy. She took a step back and looked at Hua Jinyao. I'm late for work. She walked past Hua Jinyao, but he stood in front of her again. You haven't had breakfast yet. Su Qingsang turned to look at the table. There were all kinds of breakfast Hua Jinyao bought. These days, whenever he was at home, he bought breakfast. Su Qingsang pressed her lips into a straight line. In the end, she couldn't refuse Hua Jinyao's kindness. Not only did she eat the breakfast he bought, but she also asked him to drive her to work like before. She sat in the car and looked out of the window in silence. The fast traffic made her feel a little uneasy. How was she going to face Hua Jinyao? This husband who appeared out of nowhere? When they arrived at the hospital, Su Qingsang almost couldn't wait to get out of the car. But Hua Jinyao held her hand again. Honey, you seem to have forgotten something. Hua Jinyao. She knew what it was, but today she couldn't. Hua Jinyao gave her a heavy kiss on the cheek. Goodbye kiss. Hua Jinyao smiled like a cat who had successfully stolen a fish. Hua Jinyao. Su Qingsang looked around, afraid that her colleagues would see her. He didn't seem to mind at all. Instead, he moved his face closer and said, I want one too. That's enough. My wife is so stingy. Hua Jinyao looked at her with a sad look, as if he had been wronged. Before she could react, he leaned over and gave her another kiss on the other cheek. All right, you're stingy. I'm very generous. Hua Jinyao waved his hand and grinned, showing his white teeth. Remember to miss me. This person. Seeing him like that, Su Qingsang was not angry at all. She could only glare at him and quickly get out of the car. She didn't know if Hua Jinyao's words had an effect. Hua Jinyao's face flashed across her mind from time to time. Ignoring the slight fluctuation in her heart, she professionally put away the fetal heart instrument and looked at the pregnant woman in front of her. For now, everything seems normal. I've already told you what to pay attention to last time. It's just that you're getting older, so it's better to exercise properly. Thank you, Dr. Su. After hearing the precautions, the pregnant woman thanked her profusely and left. Su Qingsang called out, Next. Chapter 83. Su Yusen was only 17 years old this year. Li Qianxue and Su Qinghui had him when Su Peijian was 8 years old. He was in his first year of high school and went to Lin City's first middle school. Because it was a little far from home, he had been living on campus. Su Qingsang occasionally went back to the Su family, but couldn't meet Su Yusen. The two of them were sister and brother, but they had few opportunities to see each other. She really didn't know why Su Yusen was looking for her. Sister. What made Su Qingsang's eyes pop out? Su Yusen actually called her sister. What's the matter? Su Qingsang looked at her nominal brother. She was in the obstetrics and gynecology department. Why did he come here for no reason? Su Yusen lowered his head. His face, which was somewhat similar to Li Qianxue's, was not delicate. Instead, he was very handsome. He was only 17 years old, but he was already 1.8 meters tall. At this moment, he lowered his head with a guilty look on his face. What happened? Su Qingsang knew the ability of the Su family and the strength of the Li family. There was nothing that Su Yusen couldn't tell his parents. You didn't get into trouble, did you? It was very strange to say. Su Yusen was Su Qinghui's only son. He was quite strict with this son. The most favored person in the Su family was Su Peijian. Su Peijian grew up. No matter what she did, Su Qinghui couldn't bear to touch her, let alone teach her a lesson. But Su Yusin. Su Qinghui had been watching him very closely since he was a child. Whether it was homework or other things, he was very demanding. Su Yusin didn't know how to say it twice. He gritted his teeth, turned around, and pulled in a figure outside the door. It was a little girl who looked like she was only 16 or 17 years old. She's my girlfriend. She's pregnant. Su Qingsang almost choked on her own saliva. What did you say? She's pregnant. Su Yusin's face was very red, and the little girl's face was a little pale. Aren't you a doctor? Help her abort the child. Su Qingsang stood up and closed the door with her hand. Su Yusin, are you crazy? I'm not crazy. Su Yusin gritted his teeth. I'm only 17 years old. You're only 17. If you don't want to be a father so early, why did you get her pregnant so early? Su Qingsang was furious. Do you know how harmful it is to your health to have an abortion? She swallowed the rest of her words when she saw the little girl's pale face. Su Qingsang took a deep breath to calm herself down. Does Dad know? How is this possible? If he knew, he would beat me to death. She knew very well how strict Su Qinghui was with him. Su Qingsang was furious. She looked at the little girl and said, Do you want to beat the child too? The girl was quite pretty. She kept her head down and only answered in a very low voice after hearing Su Qingsang's words. I'm still in school. Su Qingsang didn't know what to say. She looked at the people in front of her and felt that they had completely subverted her understanding. The two of them were still children, not even adults. But, sister, if you help me this time, I'll owe you one. Su Yusin was normal now, but Su Qingsang only felt upset. The Su family's parents didn't know, but what about the girl's parents? Do your parents know? Chapter 84. Su Qingsang looked at the two young men in front of her and sighed helplessly. Have you thought it through? It's a life we're talking about. I have. The two of them spoke in unison, so Su Qingsang could only agree. There was an empty operating theater today. She sat back in her seat to write the bill. Take her for a checkup and pay the fee. You have money on you, don't you? Yes. I do. Su Yusin nodded, took the list and looked at Su Qingsang. For the first time, he showed a sincere smile to this sister, who had never been friendly to him. Sister. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. She looked at the little girl. You're still young. After the operation, you should stay in the hospital for a few days to rest. I have to go to school. I'll write a leave slip for you. Take it and apply for leave. If she didn't take good care of her body, it would be difficult for her to have children in the future. You don't want that either, do you? The little girl stopped talking. Su Qingsang sighed and asked someone to arrange the operating room. The little girl followed Su Yusin out. Su Qingsang felt a headache when she got up to get ready. Amidst the headache, her body suddenly froze in place. She had been with Hu Jinyao for the past few days, but he didn't seem to have taken any protective measures. And these few days were her safe period. But what about in the future? Was she ready to be a mother so early? Was she ready to have a child so early? No, she should ask herself. Does she have the confidence to take on the responsibility of a mother? Bringing a life into this world just like that. Su Qingsang's lips were pursed into a straight line, and the struggle lasted no more than a few seconds. She prescribed herself a long-acting contraceptive. Su Qingsang didn't know the girl's name until the operation was over. Bai Jihan. What a nice name. Su Qingsang prescribed her medicine and arranged a ward for her. Then he gave her a leave slip. Help her ask for leave. About a week. At least. She turned her face to look at Bai Jihan. Have a good rest. Don't worry. I'll ask the nurse to come here more often. You can call me if you have any questions. Thank you, sister. You're welcome. Su Qingsang walked out of the ward, followed by Su Yusin. He used to dislike Su Qingsang and didn't like her. After all, no one would like their father to have an illegitimate daughter. Standing in front of Su Qingsang, she was a little shy, as if she didn't know what to do. Sister, is there anything else? Su Qingsang seemed to remember something. All right, You should be in school now, right? Are you going back to school today? Su Yusin was a little embarrassed. Help me get a sick leave certificate too. I want to stay here and take care of her all day tomorrow. The look in Su Qingsang's eyes changed a little. She didn't expect her brother to be so responsible. Is one day enough? Enough. Also, don't tell Dad about this. Don't worry. I know. Su Qingsang had originally planned to leave, but she couldn't help but say, Yusin, I know you've grown up. There are some things that you should also know. I don't object to you falling in love or finding a girlfriend. But he still remembered to protect the girl next time. After all, whether it's abortion or childbirth, it's not something you should experience at your age. Su Yusin's face was full of embarrassment, but in the end, he did not refute. I understand. I'll pay attention next time. Go. Su Qingsang was busy, and it was almost time to get off work. Before leaving, she went to the ward again, and Bai Jihan was already asleep. Su Yusin was watching over her. Su Qingsang asked someone to send them lunch boxes, and asked the restaurant to send a cup of health soup. She told Su Yusin to let Bai Jihan drink it, and then left. As soon as she left the hospital, she saw Hua Jinyao coming to pick her up. Chapter 85. Su Qingsang didn't know why, but she inexplicably felt a little guilty. She didn't know why she felt guilty. She wasn't sure if Hua Jinyao would agree with her decision. Her decision was unilateral, and she didn't tell Hua Jinyao. But the fact was that Hua Jinyao also had the right to know and participate. He was her husband, and he also had the right to decide whether to have children, not her unilateral contraception. She didn't want to have children, but the fact was that she really didn't want to have children. She could accept marrying a man, but to bring a life into this world Honey. Hua Jinyao had already gotten out of the car, and very considerately opened the door for her. Sometimes, Su Qingsang really didn't understand where Hua Jinyao's enthusiasm came from. Honey, what's wrong? Hua Jinyao stepped forward to put his arms around her waist, and Su Qingsang quickly took a step back. There were people coming and going in the hospital, and she really didn't want to be the center of attention. Are you not feeling well? Hua Jinyao put his hand on Su Qingsang's forehead, and didn't find anything unusual. Are you too tired at work? His enthusiasm made Su Qingsang uncomfortable. She was used to being cold-hearted, but she couldn't stand Hua Jinyao's enthusiasm. I'm a little tired. She had performed Bai Jihan's surgery herself. She could guarantee that the process was smooth, but she felt a little sad. A little life, which should have been the life of her nephew or niece, ended in her hands. Hua Jinyao was extremely sensitive to the fact that Su Qingsang's mood at this time was not high, completely different from the low mood in the morning. In the morning, she was not in a good mood. She looked more helpless and evasive. But now she was tired, really tired. What happened? Nothing. Su Qingsang refused to answer this question, and turned to get into the car. Hua Jinyao didn't ask further, and calmly followed her into the car. Honey, what are we eating tonight? At first, Su Qingsang found it weird that Hua Jinyao kept calling her wife, but now, she was used to it. He could call her whatever he wanted. It was just a form of address anyway. Whatever. Hua Jinyao leaned over with obvious dissatisfaction on his face. Can't you just be casual? What can I do if you are always casual? Then we'll go wherever you want to eat. Su Qingsang was not particular about food. Before she officially started working, she once went to a remote area as a support doctor for an intern. The environment there was even worse and more bitter. And this was only in China. Some medical teams that went overseas not only had a poor environment, but they were also not used to the food and accommodation. It's easier to lose your life. The more she saw, the lower her expectations of life. Let's go eat Japanese food, okay? No. Su Qingsang instinctively didn't like it. What about Korean cuisine? No. Thai cuisine. Can't you think of someone from China? Hua Jinyao could tell that Su Qingsang didn't like foreign food. She only liked Chinese food. Then let's eat Hunan cuisine. I've looked around. There's a Hunan restaurant that just opened. You can even get a discount. All right. Su Qingsang didn't refuse. She was actually a little dizzy from such a conversation. Hua Jinyao, You don't have to ask me next time. Just tell me what you like to eat. I'm fine with anything. How can I do that? Hua Jinyao's face was serious. He stopped starting the car and said, You are my wife. Of course, I have to focus on your needs first. I have to like what you like too. Chapter 86. Su Qingsang didn't know what to say, but she couldn't bring herself to hate Hua Jinyao's glib tongue. She could only blame this man for having such a good appearance. Handsome people seemed to be forgiven for anything they did, not to mention the fact that he was looking at her so intently and confessing to her. Su Qingsang's heart skipped a beat. She had to turn around and look out of the window. As for Hua Jinyao, she wanted to ignore him for some reason. He Xianyao didn't stay in Lin City for a day. After being criticized by Hua Jinyao, she was annoyed and booked the fastest flight back to Rong City. Yao Yao. He Xiankai came back from a party with friends that night and saw He Xianyao dragging her luggage home. Didn't you go to Lin City with your friends? Why are you back so soon? Brother. He Xianyao had been suppressing her emotions along the way, but now it was obvious that she could no longer suppress them. What's wrong? Yao Yao. Brother. He Xianyao threw herself into He Shuangkai's arms and burst into tears. What's wrong? Who bullied you? His sister was 7 or 8 years younger than him. He had been the one to take care of his sister when they were little, so they had a special relationship. He Xianyao tried to control her voice. Brother Jinyao Hua Jinyao? He Xiankai frowned. If he remembered correctly, the Hua family member wasn't in Rong City recently. It's him He Xianyao sobbed and looked at her brother with tears in her eyes. Brother, how could I be wrong? It's him. Why did he pretend not to know me? He Xiankai didn't know what was going on. Could it be that he was busy at the time? Busy? There was a woman with him. I think they got married. Married? That was impossible. He Shuangkai's intuition told him it was fake. The Hua family is so important. How could there be no news of Hua Jinyao getting married in Rong City? It's true. He Xianyao was angry at the thought. He really got married. I asked Qiu Junjiao. She said Hua Jinyao's wife is an illegitimate daughter. Everyone in Lin City with a bit of prestige knows about it. He Xiankai rubbed his chin and thought about what his sister had said. Illegitimate daughter? This was interesting. Is the Hua family married to Hua Jinyao? Did they know that Hua Jinyao married an illegitimate daughter? Brother. Uncle Hua and Auntie Hua didn't know about this at all. His engagement didn't count at all. I like Brother Jinyao. I want to snatch him away. Xianyao. What are you talking about? She's already married, and you still want to snatch her back? This younger sister of his was getting more and more willful. I want it. He Xianyao was still angry. That woman's family background and appearance are not good enough for Brother Jinyao. I don't believe the Hua family will agree. Auntie Hua valued disciples the most, not to mention that old Master Hua was in the Hua family. They would never agree to Hua Jinyao marrying a woman who didn't belong to his family. Don't worry. Let me think. He Xiankai wasn't an impulsive person. Are you sure the Hua family doesn't know about this? Of course. Otherwise you can ask around tomorrow. See if the Hua family knows about this. He Xiankai didn't say anything. There were some things that could be verified. Hua Jinyao turned over on the bed and looked in the direction of the bathroom. Su Qingsang went in to take a shower and didn't come out for a long time. Listening to the noise in the bathroom, Hua Jinyao felt an itch in his heart. He couldn't help but want to go in and find out. Chapter 87. As soon as he finished speaking, the bathroom door opened. Su Qingsang came out wearing blue cotton pajamas. The style was very conservative. Hua Jinyao looked at her sideways. It seemed that only then did he realize that Su Qingsang's pajamas were all cotton. And they were basically the kind with long sleeves that tightly wrapped her body. Wasn't she hot? Or was it to guard against him? Whatever. He decided to buy some pajamas tomorrow. He would change out of Su Qingsang's conservative pajamas. Honey. As soon as Su Qingsang's body touched the bed, Hua Jinyao leaned over and held her waist. Stop it. Su Qingsang waved his hand away and looked a little unhappy. I'm going to sleep. I'm going to sleep too. Let's sleep together. Hua Jinyao smiled maliciously. If Su Qingsang still didn't understand what he wanted to do, She would have wasted her time getting along with him. Stop it. Not today. Why? Hua Jinyao's face suddenly fell. It's not convenient for me. Seeing Hua Jinyao's puzzled face, Su Qingsang was a little speechless. My relatives are here. Relatives? What relatives? Hua Jinyao finally realized what was going on. He quickly turned around and spread himself on the bed. He looked like he had nothing to live for. Su Qingsang's usually cold heart wanted to laugh because of Hua Jinyao's expression. Her period had always been punctual. This time it was 2 days early. She didn't know if it was because of the medicine. However, Su Qingsang really breathed a sigh of relief. Although it was a safe period before, she was really afraid that she would accidentally fall into the trap. She didn't want any accidents at this time. Honey. Hua Jinyao was really depressed. It wasn't easy for him to eat meat. He hadn't eaten this meat a few times, and he couldn't eat it anymore. Stop it. I'm really sleepy. Su Qingsang thought that she could escape today, but she didn't expect that Hua Jinyao would still carry her. What are you doing? I already said Honey, what are you thinking? I'm just hugging you to sleep. Hua Jinyao felt a little wronged. We're already married. Isn't it normal for me to hug you to sleep? Su Qingsang realized that she was making a fuss. Hua Jinyao tightened his grip on her waist. My wife, my good wife, you're not my wife. I like to hug you to sleep. The corners of Su Qingsang's mouth twitched. She knew what was wrong with him, so she simply closed her eyes and ignored him. Hua Jinyao's soft body was in his arms, but he couldn't touch it. This made him even more depressed. How many days? He had to confirm his sentence first. Su Qingsang was about to fall asleep, so she didn't react for a moment. What do you mean by a few days? Your relative. Hua Jinyao's voice was deep, and he seemed to be gnashing his teeth. How many days does it usually take? The lights had been turned off. In the dark, Su Qingsang imagined Hua Jinyao's expression at that moment, and somehow felt a little happy. Usually 6 days, sometimes longer. Actually, she would have finished in 4 days, but she deliberately said 2 more days. In the darkness, she heard Hua Jinyao's muffled groan. She tried not to laugh. All right. I'm going to bed. Stop bothering me. Hua Jinyao listened to her breathing, which became steady after a while, and felt a little upset. An evil relative. Why would a woman have such a relative? Chapter 88. What about the Hua family? Do they know that Hua Jinyao is married? A grown girl couldn't be kept at home. He Xiankai sighed. If I said I didn't ask about it, you would be mad at me. Brother. He Xianyao was unhappy and shook He Shuankai's arm. Just tell me. Does the Hua family know? The Hua family, brother. Seeing his sister so anxious, He Xiankai didn't keep her in suspense. I asked. The Hua family really doesn't know about Hua Jinyao's marriage. They were all from the upper-class business circle of Rong City, so it wasn't difficult for He Xiankai to find out. Not only do they not know, but the Hua family probably doesn't know what Hua Jinyao is doing outside. Then what is he doing? In fact, He Xianyao didn't understand. Hua Jinyao couldn't even handle things in Rong City, so why did he go to Lin City? Hua Jinyao said he was developing his business in Lin City, but I don't think it's that simple. The Hua family was in a complicated situation. Hua Jinyao didn't line up because he wanted to avoid it. But why would Hua Jinyao's parents agree to let him go to Lin City? It was strange. Brother, don't talk about useless things. Just tell me how I can get Hua Jinyao back. That was the point. He Xiankai looked at his sister and sighed helplessly. I have an idea, but you have to promise me. Don't do anything stupid and listen to me. Okay. He Xianyao was willing to do anything as long as she could get Hua Jinyao. About this, hearing He Shuankai's voice, He Shuanyao's eyes finally began to light up. There was a bright smile in her bright eyes. She was determined to get Hua Jinyao. The head nurse, Shen Pinglan, noticed that Su Qingsang seemed to be in a good mood today. She walked in with a smile on her face. Dr. Su, what's wrong? Something good happened? Su Qingsang shook her head. Nothing good. Why are you smiling so happily? Su Qingsang only thought of Hua Jinyao this morning. Men usually got excited in the morning, but it wasn't convenient for her now. She still remembered that last night, she accidentally turned around in Hua Jinyao's arms. In the end, that guy actually had a reaction. She really couldn't take it anymore and wanted to sleep in the guest room. He won't let me. On the other side, he ran to take a cold shower and refused to let go of her. In the end, Hua Jinyao took no less than 3 cold showers that night. Su Qingseng felt helpless. She was very sure that she hadn't done anything. Have you had many girlfriends before? Although young people were hot-blooded, it was still better for them to control themselves, right? Nope. I only have you, Hua Jinyao hurriedly explained. If he didn't make it clear, people would misunderstand. Then how did you survive the last 30 years? Su Qingseng couldn't help but want to argue with him. I didn't have you before. Hua Jinyao put his arms around her waist and smiled obsequiously. I have you now. Besides, they had already eaten a sumptuous meal, and now they were asking him to eat vegetables. Wasn't this too inhumane? Su Qingseng didn't know what to say. This person was really, she said that they should sleep separately, but she refused. Men tend to get excited easily this morning. Chapter 89. Su Qingseng wanted to tell him to take less cold water. However, she accidentally used too much force when she pulled him. He turned over and fell asleep on her. Fortunately, his hand was placed on her chest. Honey, you. What did she mean? Su Qingseng really didn't know what to say when she met his accusatory gaze. She tried to reach out and push him. Get up. I didn't mean to. Honey, Hua Jinyao looked sad. Stop it. Su Qingseng quickly wanted to get up, but she didn't know that she got up too quickly. She bumped into Hua Jinyao again. What followed was chaos. Su Qingseng didn't want to recall the process now. She only felt that Hua Jinyao's sad face made her laugh. And he was still looking at her with that kind of gaze until he sent her to the hospital. Now she met the curiosity in Shen Pinglan's eyes and smiled. The pregnant woman in bed 18 has been discharged. She recovered very well. She met me downstairs just now and thanked me. That's because Dr. Su is very responsible to the pregnant woman and the patient. They think you are good. It's my duty. Su Qingseng nodded and stopped thinking about Hua Jinyao. She put on a white coat and went to see Bai Jihan. Bai Jihan was recovering well and was much more energetic than before. She was the only one left when she saw her. Well, where's Su Yusen? He went back to class, Bai Jihan said in a very low voice. She had just had an abortion and was still a little weak. Only then did Su Qingseng remember that Su Yusen was still a high school student. She sighed in her heart, told some things to pay attention to, and then left. In the evening, Shi Mengwan came to see her again, before it was time to get off work. Qingseng. Shi Mengwan looked at Su Qingseng from head to toe and clicked her tongue. Not bad. It seems that marriage has a great impact on you. Look at your rosy face. What are you talking about? My face has always been like this, okay? Su Qingseng was in good health. She was a doctor and naturally knew the importance of health better than ordinary people. Shi Mengwan chuckled. Are you sure? You look like a completely different person from before you got married. Don't deny it. Okay. You haven't said what it is. She really didn't want to bring the topic back to how she got married. I want to have a meal with you. It's almost National Day. At that time, more and more people would get married. I'm afraid I won't have time to visit you. Isn't that perfect? You can earn a little more. Of course. Shi Mengwan seemed to have thought of something as she said. Oh right. I remember what happened. What? I saw your brother just now. Shi Mengwan touched her shoulder. Why is he here? Doesn't he go to school? Also, did he come here for you? He's not looking for trouble with you, is he? What's going on in your head? Even though neither Su Peijian nor Su Yusen liked her. But they wouldn't go so far as to lower themselves to make things difficult for her. Shi Mengwan was not an outsider, and she was very tight-lipped. Su Qingseng briefly told her about Su Yusen. That's it. I thought he wouldn't come today. I didn't expect him to sneak back here again. He wondered if the school and his family knew about this. Qingseng, think about it. This is really a big deal. Chapter 90. Mengwan. She was getting more and more ridiculous. Why would she grab hold of Su Yusen's weakness for no reason? Besides, if this matter really got out, Bai Jihan wouldn't be able to get any benefits. She's just a little girl, why? I'm joking. She knew that Su Qingseng would never do such a thing. I just feel that it's a pity. Mengwan. She knew that sure Mengwan was crying out for her. But Su Yusin was too young. Who hasn't been young and frivolous? What's more, even though he had done something wrong, at least he didn't throw a sum of money to Bai Jihan, and then ignore her like other people in the circle. She had seen many such incidents in the industry. Seriously speaking, Su Yusin was a responsible person. All right. I won't say any more. Let's go eat. Sure Mengwan dragged her outside. The two of them walked out of the hospital gate, and were about to walk to the side when Sure Mengwan stopped again. What happened? Sure Mengwan's gaze fell on the man and woman beside her. That man was the one she met last time. At this moment he had a woman with him. He was carefully supporting the woman as they walked out of the hospital. Mengwan. Su Qingseng also saw that person. Sure Mengwan gritted her teeth. When she looked at Su Qingseng again, the corners of her mouth twitched. She knew that she didn't mean what she said. It's okay. Let's go. He kept saying that she had the wrong person. But how could she be mistaken? She had spent so much time with her dear brother. She had always thought that her dear brother had forgotten about her for some special reason. But now she knew that he already had another woman by his side. Let me treat you to dinner. Su Qingseng couldn't bear to see her friend like this. What? I make more money than you do. My treat. Sure Mengwan returned to her carefree self. Besides, that person is definitely not my dear brother. I think I got the wrong person last time. Yeah. Su Qingseng couldn't find any words to comfort her. I believe your big brother won't forget you. And he must be waiting for you somewhere. Don't give up. Yes. Don't worry. I won't give up. Sure Mengwan smiled brightly. Everyone knew that the person she was waiting for would not appear. Only Qingseng was the best. She always comforted and encouraged her. Qingseng, you're so nice. AI. Why did you get married? Can't you just marry me? Yes. I'll marry you. What about your big brother? While the two of them were talking, the tall man who had been supporting the woman outside seemed to have sensed something and glanced over. However, neither Sure Mengwan nor Su Qingseng noticed it. Honey. When Hua Jinyao came to pick her up, Su Qingseng was not surprised to see an extremely sad face. She felt that the word grievance could not be more appropriate. At that moment in her eyes, Hua Jinyao was no different from a golden retriever that had been neglected by its owner. You actually abandoned me again and ran off to eat by yourself. Su Qingseng frowned helplessly. What made her even more helpless was that she actually felt a little guilty because of Hua Jinyao's accusation. Sorry, I forgot to tell you. You're always like this. Hua Jinyao was quite displeased. When will you remember that we're already married? I am your husband. Su Qingseng's lips moved, but she had nothing to say. She really did forget. Especially every time Sure Mengwan came to see her. Who did you have dinner with? When Hua Jinyao came to pick her up, she was alone. Chapter 91. Hua Jinyao. Su Qingseng didn't like his tone. She was married to him, but she still had her own independent personality. Honey. Hua Jinyao, don't be like this. Su Qingseng wanted to say something, but she found that there were other people passing by. She looked at him helplessly and got into the car first. Hua Jinyao followed her and got into the car. Honey. Let's go home first. We'll talk when we get home. It was not a good place to talk. The restaurant was not far from Su Qingseng's apartment. Half an hour later, the two of them were already in their own little house. Su Qingseng went into the kitchen and poured a glass of water for herself and Hua Jinyao. She came out and put it in front of him before sitting down opposite him. Hua Jinyao. Honey, go ahead. Hua Jinyao sat up straight and looked like he was listening attentively. Su Qingseng couldn't vent her anger. Hua Jinyao's shameless behavior gave her a headache. You know what? We're married. But I still want to keep some of myself. Honey, let me finish first. Su Qingseng had been feeling this way for a while. Hua Jinyao entered her life too quickly and too hastily. She wasn't prepared at all. The two of them got married directly, and then came to the last step. She wasn't used to such a sudden intimate relationship. Hua Jinyao, I know you're a good person. He agreed to help her under such circumstances, and had been very good to her during this period of time. But I feel that our relationship is moving too fast. I hope we can. Too fast? Hua Jinyao interrupted her. Why do I feel that it's too slow? You, think about it. We're both married. You see, in fairy tales, after the prince and the princess get married, that's the ending of the story. We rushed to the ending as soon as we came. We skipped the middle step. Shouldn't we hurry up and make up for the middle step? Su Qingsang was speechless and looked at him blankly. So we should seize all the time we have to spend together and fall in love. That's scientific. Hua Jinyao's matter-of-fact attitude made Su Qingsang completely speechless. That's not what I mean. I got it. Hua Jinyao's expression changed. He looked aggrieved again. Are you disgusted by my attitude just now? I'm not disgusted. I'm just a little unhappy. I really didn't mean to criticize you. Hua Jinyao stood up and walked to her, reaching out to hold her hand. Think about it. I'm married to you, but you didn't invite me to a party with your friends. You're obviously treating me like an outsider, so of course I'm unhappy. Hua Jinyao, I understand. Don't worry. I will restrain myself if I'm unhappy like this in the future. But you have to promise me that if you have a gathering with your friends in the future, please call me, okay? This is not. Don't worry, my table manners aren't ugly either. It's not like he's smacking his lips. If you bring me along, I can even pay for you. How great is that? That's right. It's decided then, Hua Jinyao concluded. Next time you have dinner with your friends, you must invite me. If I'm having dinner with my colleagues, I'll invite you too. That was fair. Right? How was that fair? That was not what she meant at all. Hua Jinyao, I mean. All right, honey, I'm starving. I haven't eaten yet. I'm going to take a shower first. Could you please order takeout for me? Hua. Or you can make a bowl of noodles for me. But I don't want you to do it, so I'll order takeout. As soon as she finished speaking, Hua Jinyao gave her another heavy kiss on the face. He kissed the rest of her words away. Chapter 92. By the time Hua Jinyao finished showering, the takeout had arrived. As soon as Su Qingsang put the takeout on the dining table, Hua Jinyao wrapped his arms around her. Honey, you're so nice. Get out of my way. I'm not. Hua Jinyao kissed her on the cheek. Honey, you're so nice. Look, you're so soft-hearted. You even know to order my favorite dishes. She didn't. She just ordered casually. Let go of me. I'm going to take a shower. Su Qingsang looked at the man who was as big as a dog and was speechless. She was almost done with her thesis, but she hadn't fully understood a lot of the materials Zhua Hongchen brought back last time. When she was almost done and went back to her room, she found that Hua Jinyao was still awake. Su Qingsang went into the bathroom to wash up. As soon as she lay down, Hua Jinyao came over. Honey, what are you doing? Sensing that his hand was on her body where it shouldn't be, Su Qingsang's vigilance immediately rose to the highest. Nothing. Hua Jinyao looked a little sad. I just wanted to ask if I could borrow your hand for a while. Borrow her hand? Why would he borrow her hand? Su Qingsang's hand was quickly grabbed by Hua Jinyao. When she touched something, she quickly withdrew her hand. Hua Jinyao, that's enough. Honey. Hua Jinyao grabbed her hand again. Just for a while. Just for a while. Su Qingsang was so angry that she almost laughed. Was he really just for a while? You have your own hand. I won't borrow it. That's different. What's different? Your hand is more tender. As Hua Jinyao spoke, he held Su Qingsang's hand in his and raised it to his face. Look at my wife. Not only is she beautiful, but her hand is also beautiful. It's white and tender. That's enough. Was her hand tofu? It was white and tender. Honey, just lend it to me for a while. Hua Jinyao didn't give up. Su Qingsang ignored him and quickly withdrew her hand. She turned over and slept on the other side of the bed. Honey. Hua Jinyao came over again. You're so cruel. Hua Jinyao. She had had enough. If you keep messing around, I'll sleep in the guest room. Hua Jinyao didn't dare to make a sound, but his face was still full of grievance. He held Su Qingsang in his arms and didn't dare to do anything else, but he still didn't give up. Actually, shut up, I want to sleep. Honey, you haven't told me who you're having dinner with tonight. Su Qingsang felt a throbbing pain in her forehead. She abruptly turned around and looked at Hu Jinniao. If you keep making noise, I'll go back to work at the hospital. I won't come back for a week. Honey, you don't have to be so ruthless, right? He had just been on a business trip for a week. It wasn't convenient for her to come back. She still had to be on duty. Are you going to sleep? Sleep. Sleep. Hu Jinniao raised his hand and made a zipper gesture over his mouth. That aggrieved look on his face was unparalleled. Su Qingsang didn't want to look at him anymore, so she turned away from him. She closed her eyes to sleep, but the corners of her lips couldn't help curling up, and she fell asleep with a faint smile. He Xianyao put the proposal in front of Hu Jinniao. Her little face was still a little nervous. Chapter 93. Hu Jinniao didn't rush to get the proposal. Instead, he looked at He Xianyao expressionlessly. If I remember correctly, Mr. He used to be in charge of this, right? The president he was talking about was naturally He Xiankai. Hu Jinniao didn't have much of an impression of He Xianyao. However, He Xiankai had worked with him several times. Both of them were from Rong City and were considered young talents of the upper-class society. They could not help but appreciate each other. However, he didn't expect He Xiankai to be such a good brother, who loved his sister so much. That's right. My brother used to be in charge of this, but I'm back in the country now, and I'm also studying in this field. I think it's completely fine for me to be in charge of this. He Xuanyao's attitude was neither servile nor overbearing. She was polite and well-mannered. She now understood that there were some things that couldn't be solved by crying. She had to let Hu Jinniao know that He Xianyao, was not a good-for-nothing. He was also capable and responsible. All right. I got it. Hu Jinniao nodded. Leave the proposal. I have a meeting to attend. I'll let you know the results later. President Hua, I don't think this is appropriate. He Xuanyao's voice was very soft. Our company has shown the greatest sincerity for cooperation, and we have been working very well together. Why are you being so perfunctory now? If you think it's perfunctory, then so be it. I only know that our company needs to calculate and compare the data of every collaboration. If you're not sure, you can go back and ask Mr. He. He Xianyao bit her lip and was about to retort when she suddenly smiled. Since President Hua is busy, I'll take my leave first. President Hua could wait for the results before letting him know. I will be in Lin City during this period of time. Hu Jinniao didn't comment. He Xianyao got up and left. Before he left, he suddenly stopped in his tracks. By the way, President Hua, something off topic. Before I came to Lin City, I had the honor of meeting Auntie. She seems to miss you a lot. If it's convenient for you, you should go back to Rong City to visit Auntie. Hu Jinniao raised his eyebrows and didn't respond to He Xuanyao's words. Only when he was out did he press the inside line. His assistant Yang Wenchang walked in. Mr. Hua. Hu Jinniao glanced at the proposal, and a cold light flashed across his eyes. Wenchang, help me with something. Hearing Hu Jinniao's order, Yang Wenchang was a little stunned, but he quickly left. Hu Jinniao picked up the proposal, and the coldness in his eyes did not fade at all. It seemed that while he was not in Rong City, these people were making more and more moves. Interesting, very interesting. Su Qingsang had just come out of the operating room when she received the call. Today there was a pregnant woman in a bad condition. She and her teacher worked together for a long time to save both mother and child. The voice on the other side of the phone made her have no choice but to quickly pick up her bag and phone and leave the hospital. When she left the hospital, she found that her car had been driven away by Hu Jinniao. She had no choice but to take a taxi. Hu Jinniao had to go to work, and she had to be on duty in the future. Time cannot be together forever. Should she buy a car to get around? When she thought of this, she was a little worried. Hu Jinniao seemed to have a lot of pride. If she really bought a car, would he think too much? Realizing that she was actually thinking about Hu Jinniao's cultivation method, Su Qingsang's mood became extremely complicated. Chapter 94. When they arrived at their destination, Su Qingsang got out of the car and registered at the gate before entering the school. Su Qingsang hadn't been to middle school for many years, Speaking of which, this was also her alma mater. The children of the Su family weren't too bad at learning. Even though Su Yusin had caused such a ruckus, he was still a top student. When she arrived at the teacher's office, Su Qingsang saw Su Yusin standing by the desk. The matter was not complicated. Su Qingsang actually knew that. Today was the day when Bai Jihan was discharged from the hospital. Because Bai Jihan did not let her parents know, no one came to pick her up from the hospital. Su Yusin was not fake. He had asked for leave before, but he had not agreed to it. This brat had actually climbed over the wall. Then he was caught red-handed by the guard. It was true that the children in this high school were all wealthy and respectable, but this high school had always been known for being strict. In particular, Su Yusin actually regressed in this monthly test. Previously he was in first place, but now he was in 9th place. The teacher was naturally angry and wanted to call the parents. Su Yusin didn't dare to let Su Qinghui or Li Qianxue know, so he called Su Qingsang. Sorry. After listening to her teacher's complaint, Su Qingsang stood in front of Su Yusin and said, "Teacher, this matter is indeed Yusin's fault, but he has his reasons." Su Qingsang smiled gently and said, "My sister was sick. Then I'm busy with work these days. My parents are on a business trip again. And Yusin is like this because he wants to take care of his sister." "You have a sister?" The teacher looked at Su Yusin. "Yeah. Yes." The two of them spoke at the same time, showing great tacit understanding. The teacher believed him and lectured him a few more times. He said that his studies were the most important, and that even if someone in his family was sick, he could tell the teacher that he could only go out after applying for leave. Su Yusin's attitude was very good. Su Qingsang accompanied him to listen to the teacher's lecture and promised that he would work harder next time. Only then did she bring Su Yusin out. The two went to pick up Bai Jihan and sent her home. To the Bai family's parents, she only said that she was not feeling well at school because of low blood pressure and anemia, so she came back to rest. Su Qingsang drove Su Yusin back to school. Su Yusin would take the college entrance examination next year. For kids like them, it didn't matter even if they couldn't get into a university. They could just send them abroad to spend their golden years. However, Su Qinghui had always been very strict with Su Yusin, so if Su Yusin's grades were really bad, it would be terrible. "Sister. Thank you." Su Yusin's sister and thank you were especially sincere. "You're welcome." Su Qingsang didn't have much contact with Su Yusin in the past, but now she felt like an older sister to him. "You've already called me sister. There's no need to thank me." Su Yusin's face was a little red. In the past, he really couldn't be considered friendly to this sister. Although he didn't do anything overboard, he also didn't treat her as his sister. "Sister, don't worry. From now on you are my sister." "Uft. Are you stupid? I'm your biological sister." After saying that, Su Qingsang suddenly remembered her identity. Her smile faded and she felt a little awkward. Yes. You are my biological sister." Su Qingsang stopped talking. She wasn't even sure if she was her biological sister. When Hua Jinyao returned home that day, he was surprised to find that Su Qingsang was in a bad mood. "Wife, have you eaten?" "Yes." Su Qingsang didn't pay much attention to him and sat on the side in a daze. Chapter 95. It looked like she had feelings for him. Hua Jinyao sat next to her and reached out to put his arms around her waist. "Nothing." Su Qingsang avoided his hands. She didn't know what to say. She wasn't sure when Su Yusin said that she was his sister. "Honey." Hua Jinyao dragged the last word and held her stubbornly in his arms. "Who made you unhappy? Tell me, and I'll beat him up." Su Qingsang's low spirits were somewhat lifted by his words, but she was still speechless. That's enough. This man talked and acted like a child. Could this kind of person really do a good job and have outstanding performance at work? Why didn't she believe it? Tell me. Seeing that she didn't want to speak, Hua Jinyao asked again. "You see, when we talk about happy things, it makes both of us happy. But when the unhappy things are said, only half of the person is unhappy. Do you think you should tell me?" "I'm really fine." She was just thinking about her background. Whether it was the outside world or the Li family, they all knew that she was the illegitimate daughter of Su Qinghui, who betrayed Li Qianxue. She had never seen her mother since she was born. What she knew was that Su Qinghui had her with another woman, and then asked for Li Qianxue's forgiveness. A few days after she was born, he took her back to the Su family. Su Qinghui and Li Qianxue had been married for less than a year at that time, but they had an illegitimate daughter. One could imagine the storm. Therefore, her position in the Su family was awkward, and because of this, Su Qinghui and Li Qianxue's relationship had always been superficial. Otherwise, she wouldn't have given birth to Su Yusin after 8 years. It could be seen that Li Qianxue simply disliked Su Qinghui at that time. These words were not said by the Su family. She heard them from the servants of the Su family. Later, those servants talked nonsense again, and they were all fired by Su Qinghui. She was curious about her biological mother. She only asked Su Qinghui who her mother was once, but Su Qinghui refused to tell her. The other members of the Su family wouldn't mention it. Sometimes, she even wondered if she was Su Qinghui's daughter. Could he have carried her back from outside? But it didn't make sense. If she wasn't Su Qinghui's daughter, why would Su Qinghui raise her? Honey. Hua Jinyao was displeased when he realized that she was daydreaming. You've been daydreaming for 10 minutes. Su Qingsang came back to her senses and looked at him, as if she had just seen him. Have you eaten? No. Hua Jinyao couldn't help but look at her with a sad face. Why didn't you wait for me to pick you up at the hospital today? Where did you go? Su Qingsang frowned and thought of her previous plan. Right, I want to buy a car. I'll leave this car for you to use. Why are you doing this? I'll be happy to take you to and from work. It's not about whether you like it or not. Su Qingsang thought about the reality of the situation. I can't be on duty forever. There were also cases of sudden surgeries. Your time can't always coincide with mine. Besides, it would be more convenient if I had a car. Hua Jinyao looked into her eyes. Honey, do you dislike me? Despise you? I don't. You still say you don't, Hua Jinyao said accusingly. You just think that I'm useless and incompetent. I can't even afford a car. I didn't say that. This accusation made her speechless. Don't worry about the car. I'll buy it. Chapter 96. Hua Jinyao blinked his eyes, then turned away with a smile and took her hand. I've been negotiating a big deal recently. If it goes well, I'll get a big bonus. Don't rush to buy a car. I'll buy it when I get the bonus, okay? What kind of order can get as much as a car? The more he explained, the more confused Su Qingsang became. Although she was a doctor, the Su family and the Li family were not. What kind of order could buy a car? It's not a very expensive car. Just buy a cheap car. What kind of cheap car is it? For example, a sports car? Hua Jinyao casually mentioned a car model he had just seen on a mobile phone advertisement. That's more than 100,000, right? Su Qingsang turned to look at him, and the suspicion on her face deepened. Let's not talk about the car. Can you tell me what kind of order it is? It's just a normal order. Hua Jinyao looked at Su Qingsang's curious face and suddenly said, I haven't had dinner. I'm so hungry now. I'm so hungry that my stomach hurts. Su Qingsang stared at his face, suspecting that he was deliberately changing the topic. But she couldn't help but show some concern. Stomach hurts? Where does it hurt? Do you need to take medicine? No medicine. Just cook a bowl of noodles for me. Hua Jinyao touched his stomach. I'm really hungry. He was a man, but he spoke with such a tone and expression. Su Qingsang didn't know what to say. She sighed helplessly. She always seemed to be very helpless when it came to Hua Jinyao. She got up and went to the kitchen to cook noodles for him. She didn't see the subtle change in Hua Jinyao's expression after she left. After dinner, Hua Jinyao didn't let Su Qingsang wash the dishes. Your hands are so beautiful. They will get rough if you wash the dishes. Honey, be good. I'll find someone to wash them tomorrow. You want to hire a part-time worker? Yeah, just enough to cook and clean for us. Aren't you happy? Su Qingsang wasn't talking about that. She was thinking, hiring a part-time worker costs money, right? You're buying a car and hiring a worker. What kind of order are you doing? Hua Jinyao looked at Su Qingsang's face and suddenly realized that it was not a good thing to marry a wife who was too smart. Aha! Su Qingsang asked again. Hua Jinyao suddenly blinked. Well, wifey, tell me, I'm listening. Your relative has left, hasn't he? Hua Jinyao sat up straight and suddenly moved closer to Su Qingsang. It's been a few days. They should have left by now, right? The feeling of being stared at by a large dog came again. For a moment, Su Qingsang forgot what she was going to say. No. Ah! Hua Jinyao's face fell. But soon his eyes lit up. Honey, I'll lend it to you. I'm sleepy. Sleep. Su Qingsang didn't have time to ask him what the project was. It was better to turn over and sleep now. Honey, I really only want to borrow it for a while. Honey. Wife. Su Qingsang closed her eyes and ignored him. The vague feeling that something was wrong came again, but she ignored it. President Hua, what did you think of the proposal last time? Yi Xianyao looked at Hua Jinyao. The smile on her face was faint, but there was a light of determination in it. I've read it. Hua Jinyao, who was behind the desk, was much calmer than Yi Xianyao. And Chapter 97. Yi Xianyao didn't look too good. She was involved in the proposal. Did Hua Jinyao mean that she was no longer capable? Was he really dissatisfied with the plan? Or was he dissatisfied with her? President Hua, I don't know what you're not satisfied with, but I think we can improve on it. There's no need to change it. None of them are satisfied. Hua Jinyao didn't give her any face. Yi Xuanyao's face turned green. President Hua, our companies have been working together for a long time. You know we've been working together for a long time. Since we're old partners, of course you should know our requirements. But to make something like this, do you think it's appropriate? Then you should at least tell me what you're dissatisfied with, right? I said, I'm not satisfied with any of them. Hua Jinyao's words made Yi Xianyao angry. She took a deep breath to calm herself down. President Hua, Auntie Hua and Uncle Hua. Stop. Hua Jinyao stood up and stared into Yi Xuanyao's eyes with a sharp gaze across the desk. Don't mention my parents in front of me. Business was business and private was private. If you like my parents, or if you think my parents like you can stay with my parents. But when it comes to cooperation, especially in this aspect, I have the final say. Understand? Yi Xianyao had seen the world. But now, she was so overwhelmed by Hua Jinyao's imposing manner that she couldn't even raise her head. She opened and closed her mouth, but couldn't find her voice for a long time. Jean, whether it's in private or with others, please call me President Hua or Mr. Hua. Now please leave. Hua Jinyao sat back down. Yi Xianyao, who couldn't stand the humiliation, gritted her teeth and was about to leave. Don't forget the proposal. Hua Jinyao's voice rang out. She could only grit her teeth and go get it again. She would remember this humiliation. Looking at the closed door, Hua Jinyao picked up the phone and dialed the intercom. Release the news. Tianyu is planning to open a public bidding for the next project. Tianyu was the name of the current branch in Lin City. The He clan. Did they really think that they were the only ones who had something to talk about? That might not be the case. Luo Meishan put down the shopping bag in her hand and sat down at the coffee table. She looked at Su Peijian and said, Peijian, that dress really suits you. Why didn't you buy it? I don't like it. Su Peijian's voice was slightly cold. Whether she was at home or outside, she had always been cold. Her clothes were taken care of by professional people, and the new styles of the major brands were delivered to the Su family before they were released. The only reason he came out to shop was because he was free today. Oh right. Luo Meishan seemed to think of something. I think I saw your brother when I went to the hospital for a physical examination a few days ago. Yusin? Su Peijian raised her eyebrows. Chapter 98. How can I not know your brother? I even went back to take a look. Your wife's office is right there. If I'm not wrong, your brother came out of her office. Seeing Su Peijian lost in thought, Luo Meishan added, Why do I feel that this might be a trick of that B** start of yours? What can she do? It wasn't that Su Peijian looked down on Su Qingsang. With her quiet character, what kind of waves could she stir up? Isn't it hard to guess? Think about it. Your mother is the only daughter of the Lee family. Whether it's the Su family or the Lee family, all the property will belong to you and your brother. It has nothing to do with that B** start. But what if she doesn't want to? She can't do anything to you. But your brother is young and ignorant. It's hard to say if she wants to hook up with your brother. Needless to say, they were all smart people. Su Peijian pressed her lips into a straight line. How dare she? Su Qinghui gave her a dowry when she got married. She should not have been entitled to a penny of it in the first place. Not to mention that the Su family bought her a house and a car. Why wouldn't they dare? Luo Meishan sneered. These people are greedy and insatiable. Compared with the Li family's huge property, what she has now is nothing. Su Peijian stood up, and Luo Meishan quickly grabbed her hand. What are you doing? I'm going to find her. Don't. Luo Meishan took her hand and asked her to sit down. If you go to her now, there's nothing you can do if she doesn't admit it. Su Peijian sat down again, thinking about Luo Meishan's words. But if she has such a plan, she will definitely give herself away. Then what do you want to do? The Mid-Autumn Festival is coming. I'll ask my father to call her to come back for the festival. If she doesn't have that intention, she will keep a distance from Yusen just like before. If she has a guilty conscience, she will definitely get close to Yusen. Smart. Luo Meishan gave her an admiring look. Then you can catch her in the act. No. Su Peijian shook her head, her beautiful eyes flashing with sharpness. Su Qingsang, it's fine if you don't provoke me. If you provoke me, I will let you know what it means to draw water with a sieve. When Hu Jingyao came out of the bathroom, he found Su Qingsang staring blankly at her phone. What happened? Su Qingsang shook her head. She didn't know what to say. Honey. Hu Jingyao put his arm around her waist. That relative of yours should have left, right? How many days has it been? Stop fooling around. Su Qingsang didn't have time to talk to him. She held her phone with a serious look on her face. Honey, are you all right? Hu Jingyao sat up straight and looked at her nervously. My dad called me to come home for the holidays. Festival? What festival? It's the Mid-Autumn Festival next week. Su Qingsang's voice was flat. My father suddenly called me and asked me to go home to celebrate the festival with him. Let's go then. Hu Jingyao said calmly. Su Qingsang rolled her eyes at him. Since I moved to boarding school and high school, my father has never asked me to go home for the Mid-Autumn Festival. Do you think he suddenly asked me to go back like this? What's wrong with that? Hu Jingyao shrugged with a normal expression. You're married this year. You're not the same person anymore. A new son-in-law has to come to visit. Chapter 99. Although he had kept the fact that he had come to Lin City a secret, some people with ulterior motives couldn't stop him. If someone were to find out, they would definitely come knocking on his door to curry favor with him. Su Qinghui was a smart man. He was Qingsong's biological father, even if he didn't have to please her. But in this state, he definitely wouldn't offend her. Really? Su Qingsang pursed her lips into a straight line. She felt that something was wrong, but she couldn't figure out why. All right. Hu Jingyao didn't like it when she kept paying attention to the Su family's stupidity. His big hands circled her waist, and his chin rested on her neck. Honey, I haven't had enough to eat recently. Then you go eat. You can also order takeout. Hu Jingyao hired a part-time helper to come over every afternoon to clean up the house and make dinner. There should still be ingredients left behind by the other party in the fridge. It's not that I'm hungry. Hu Jingyao rubbed his face against her shoulder. You've starved me for a long time. Wife. Hu Jingyao. Su Qingsang couldn't stand it anymore and stood up. Couldn't this guy be more serious? I said it's not convenient for me. You lied to me. Hu Jingyao turned over and pressed her under his body. How many days have you been inconvenienced? Her body suddenly lost balance, but the soft pillow didn't make her uncomfortable. His face was right in front of hers, and her heart skipped a beat. I'm sleepy. I want to sleep. It's okay. We'll sleep together. Hu Jingyao, I really don't. It's convenient for you. I know. Hu Jingyao kissed her lips. He remembered the treasures he had bought online. Why hasn't he sent it back yet? He couldn't wait for Su Qingsang to put it on. He couldn't wait to see how Su Qingsang would look in those thin and beautiful fabrics. Hua Jinyao. Su Qingsang gritted her teeth. This guy, can't he think of anything else other than this? No. Hua Jinyao kissed her neck and said, Honey, you can't. Tomorrow is Saturday, so you have to let me eat my fill today. You. Hua Jinyao gently kissed away her voice. Then, he made her unable to speak again. Su Qingsang had been a little uneasy before. She didn't think that the Su family would harm her or anything. However, the relationship that was clearly trying hard to distance itself suddenly became closer. It always made people wonder if there was something going on. Such uneasiness disappeared after receiving Su Yusun's call. Su Yusun called her and told her that he had called Su Qinghui. She wanted him to invite her back for the festival this year. Since Su Yusun said so, there was no problem. Su Qingsang was relieved and thought of something else. In the past, Su Yusun's relationship with her had only been ordinary. But if he did this, would it make her attract the attention of Li Qianxue and Su Qinghui again? Of course, she didn't value him that way. Su Qingsang thought for a moment. It seemed that it was still necessary to remind Su Yusun in private to maintain his previous appearance. Otherwise, the other members of the Su family and the Li family would be unhappy. Su Qingsang's daydream was interrupted again. The corners of her mouth twitched as she watched Hua Jinyao walk in happily. She really didn't understand. How could Hua Jinyao be so energetic? Moreover, he always looked happy as if he had won 5 million yuan. Chapter 100. Wife. Hua Jinyao carried a large cardboard box into the room. The cardboard box was a little big, and then he walked to her and put it down. What is this? A gift. Hua Jinyao had a proud expression on his face. It's a gift for you. A gift. Su Qingsang looked at the box that she couldn't see what was inside. Why do you want to give me a gift? It wasn't New Year's Day. It wasn't their birthdays either. What kind of gift was she giving him? A full moon gift. Hua Jinyao clapped his hands. You see, we've been married for a month. So this is a full moon gift. The corner of Su Qingsang's mouth twitched. How could he say that? All right. Hua Jinyao picked up the box again. Let's go try it on. Clothes? Try it now. Su Qingsang wanted to refuse, but Sister Lu, the part-time helper, had already finished cooking. Miss Su, Mr. Hua, time to eat. Hua Jinyao only realized that there were other people in the room. He suddenly looked a little uncomfortable. Let's eat first. We'll try it after eating. After that, he picked up the box and went to the room. Su Qingsang was left staring at his back in surprise. Acting so mysterious. What was this guy doing? After eating, Su Qingsang's doubts were answered. She watched as Hua Jinyao came out with the treasure he had bought online in his hand. It was as if he was presenting a treasure. Wife, try this. Hua Jinyao took out one of them, which he thought was the most suitable for Su Qingsang. Su Qingsang looked at the thin pajamas, which were as thin as if she wasn't wearing them at all. Don't worry, I bought them according to your size. I promise you can wear them. I don't want to wear them. Su Qingsang refused and ignored Hua Jinyao. I'm going to take a shower. Wife. Hua Jinyao reached out to hold her hand. She was caught off guard. Her body softened, and she sat directly on the bed. Hua Jinyao turned his face sideways and handed the pajamas to her with a smile. Try it on. I really think it suits you. Stop it. I'm not. Hua Jinyao's voice sounded a little aggrieved. Honey, don't you like the present I bought? I don't like it. Who would like this kind of rags that were no different from wearing nothing? But I like it. Hua Jinyao held her body in his arms. Look, I like this. Just promise me that you'll wear it for me. If you don't agree, I'll help you change right now. Hua Jinyao was about to take off her clothes as he spoke. How could Su Qingsang let him have his way? She used her hands and feet to push his hand away, and then quickly got up. Seeing that Hua Jinyao was going to pester her again, she was very annoyed. On impulse, he grabbed the thin black cloth and rushed into the bathroom. Don't follow me in. Hua Jinyao had achieved his goal, so he wouldn't go in again. Putting away the rest, He began to think about how to let her have one piece a day for the next few days. An idea flashed through Hu Jinyao's mind. His eyes lit up, and he quickly got up to take a shower in the guest bathroom. Su Qingseng struggled in the bathroom for a long time, but she didn't have the courage to put on the pajamas. She really hated Hu Jinyao and felt that he had gone too far. But she also knew that if she didn't wear it, he might really help her wear it. When Su Qingseng came out of the bathroom, Hu Jinyao had already taken a shower and was waiting for her on the bed for a long time. Chapter 101. Seeing Su Qingseng come out, the corners of Hu Jinyao's mouth dropped. Su Qingseng was wearing her pajamas, but she still had a bath towel wrapped around her. He could only see the corner of her skirt under the towel, and the two thin straps on her shoulders. Looking at the light that almost pierced through the towel, Su Qingseng quickly walked to the other side of the bed and went to sleep. Okay, it's late. Go to sleep. She pulled up the quilt to cover herself, but Hu Jinyao was faster than her. He quickly threw the quilt aside and pulled her bath towel. Hu Jinyao. The bath towel left her body and fell to the ground. Su Qingseng was embarrassed. She reached out and turned off the light. Hu Jinyao had already grabbed her hand and held her waist with the other hand. Honey. Hu Jinyao lowered his head and smelled the fragrance on her body. He felt that the smell was refreshing. You're so beautiful. Stop it. Su Qingseng turned her head. I'm sleepy. I'm going to sleep. Okay. I'm sleepy too. Let's sleep together. You. His sleep was definitely not the same as hers. Honey. Hu Jinyao's voice was much hoarser than usual. He kissed her on the cheek and said, Black really suits you. Shut up. Her face began to burn. Really? It's very beautiful. Hu Jinyao thought about the images in his mind. Don't worry, I also bought red, white and many other colors. My wife is beautiful, and her skin is fair. Any color is beautiful. Su Qingseng not only blushed but also her toes. Don't say it. Okay. I won't say it. He did. Su Qingseng didn't even have the strength to lift a finger. She watched Hu Jinyao carry her to the bathroom to wash and carry her out. She wanted to sleep, but Hu Jinyao didn't want to. He had just eaten a big meal and was in a very good mood. Honey. Su Qingseng didn't want to talk to him. She knew very well how easily this guy got excited. How about we pick a time to go on our honeymoon? I don't have time. She had a lot of things to do in the hospital, so she couldn't leave. How can you not have time? Isn't it National Day soon? Are you the only doctor in your hospital? You should be able to take a few days off, right? I'll take a look. Over the past few days, they had treated several pregnant women with PIH, and their due dates were all around National Day. Honey. Hu Jinyao put his arms around her waist and kissed her on the neck. We haven't even gone out to play together. Maybe next time. Faced with his attitude and tone, Su Qingseng somehow couldn't bring herself to reject him. Don't worry, I can arrange everything for you when the time comes. It was true. I promise you'll have a good time. Su Qingseng felt sleepy and wanted to sleep. Hu Jinyao was still in high spirits. Honey, do you have anywhere you want to go? Tell me. Where do you want to go? Su Qingseng thought about her childhood dream and closed her sleepy eyes. Her voice became softer and softer. Norway. Norway? You want to go to Norway? Do you like it? Su Qingseng turned over and habitually found a relatively more comfortable position in his arms. Yes, I want to see the aurora borealis. After saying that, she fell asleep because she was so tired. Hu Jinyao looked down at her. Her face was only the size of his palm. Her eyes were closed, and her long eyelashes were like small fans. Her skin was so white that it was almost transparent. Not even a pore could be seen. She was defenseless and snuggled against his chest like a kitten. Chapter 102. The Su family used to celebrate the Mid-Autumn Festival with Old Master Li every year. Old Master Li's name was Li Yongfeng. In Lin City, he was considered a man of his word. He had only married one wife, Gao Yue. After giving birth to Li Qianxue, his health began to deteriorate. Li Yongfeng loved his wife so much that he didn't let her have a second child. Li Qianxue was his only daughter, He raised Li Qianxue like a son. Li Qianxue was very diligent. She had never made him worry about anything since she was a child. The only difference was that 27 years ago, she fell in love with Su Qinghui, who was only a department manager in the Li family's company. Su Qinghui's family was ordinary. In his opinion, he was not good enough for his daughter. However, Li Qianxue was obsessed with him. His daughter liked him. After more than a year, Li Yongfeng finally agreed to be with her. However, he didn't expect that Su Qinghui would have an illegitimate daughter after less than a year of marriage. How could old Master Li not be angry? However, no matter how angry he was, the fact was that, even if he didn't like Su Qingsang, he wouldn't make things difficult for her. The family he had chosen before, although the man had some minor problems and was too indecisive. But with Su Qingsang's personality, it wasn't inappropriate. Now seeing Su Qingsang walk in with Hu Jinniao, he had to admit, Su Qingsang had good taste. This Hu Jinniao was probably not an ordinary person. Old Master, Dad, Auntie. They were family, but Su Qingsang had been calling them by such strange names for more than 20 years. She had long been used to it. Hu Jinniao greeted them and gave them a gift. This time Su Qingsang chose the gift. It wasn't expensive, but it was a gift for these people. Su Qingsang didn't know if it was an illusion, but she felt that Su Peijian was looking at her in a particularly unfriendly way today. She couldn't help but look at her. Su Peijian looked away from her. She was relieved. It might have been an illusion. She met Su Yusin's eyes and found that he was winking at her. Su Qingsang almost gave him a smile, but she held back. She nodded as a greeting. Old Master Li liked to play chess. Before Su Qingsang and Hu Jinniao arrived, he was playing chess with Su Qinghui. Su Qinghui was no match for Old Master Li in chess. After a few rounds, they all lost. Dad's chess skills are superb. I am ashamed of my inferiority. If you could focus your mind on business on chess, you wouldn't lose to me. Old Master Li's words didn't sound pleasant, but Su Qinghui pretended not to hear it. He didn't know how to play chess. If it weren't for the fact that he wanted to make Old Master Li happy, he wouldn't have learned it. Old Master Li suddenly turned around and saw Hu Jinniao. You come here. Hu Jinniao rubbed his nose and stood in front of Old Master Li. Can you play chess? A little. How about we play a game together? Captain Li's eyes lit up. He had his own channels. Recently, Lin City seemed to be much livelier than before. My pleasure. Hu Jinniao sat down. Su Qingsang glanced at him, not expecting him to know how to play chess. Her eyes became more inquisitive. Hu Jinniao always seemed to surprise her. Hu Jinniao picked up a black piece and looked at Old Master Li. The white piece goes first. Old Master, please. Chapter 103. Hu Jinniao didn't seem to notice it at all. He was focused on setting up the chess game. Su Qinghui knew a little about chess, and he was a little stunned when he looked at the chess game. Old Master Li was astute and good at making arrangements. Hu Jinniao's chess style was to deal with every move without fear. The two of them played back and forth. On the surface, it seemed that Old Master Li had the upper hand, but those who knew chess knew that Old Master Li would definitely lose this game. Li Qianxue came out after instructing the servants to pay attention to the dinner preparation. Gao Yue was a lady from a wealthy family, so she naturally dabbled in the four arts. She glanced at the chessboard, and then looked at Hu Jinniao with a deeper meaning. Su Peijian had been staring at the chessboard. She turned her eyes and found that Su Qingsang and Su Yusin had disappeared. In the garden outside, Su Yusin and Su Qingsang stood behind an orange tree. She looked at her brother, Su Yusin, who was taller than her, and said softly, "Don't do something like this next time." "What is it?" "He asked me to come for the festival." Su Qingsang sighed in her heart. "Auntie won't like to see me." "I know." Su Yusin waved his hand and didn't care. "But you are a family with us. How can we not spend the festival together?" Su Qingsang felt a little gratified and a little bitter. Su Yusin was a young man with a simple mind. It was really much simpler to get along with each other. "I thank you, but I really think it's good. You see, I'm married anyway, and I won't be alone for the festival in the future. So it doesn't matter. Is he good to you?" Su Yusin didn't have much contact with Hua Jinyao, so he didn't care before. Now that he owed Su Qingseng a favor, he paid more attention to her marriage. Pretty good. Su Qingseng looked at Su Yusin's adult face and found it a little funny. Okay, don't worry about me. How is Xiaobai? It's okay. Su Yusin was still a little uncomfortable. I wanted to help her ask for leave. It just so happened that it's a holiday. She's resting at home now. That's good. The little girl was still young, so it wouldn't affect her too much. But you, Yusin. The sudden voice made Su Qingseng and Su Yusin turn their faces at the same time. One of them was talking about Bai Jihan, and she looked a little guilty. The other one didn't want Su Peijian to hear about Bai Jihan, so she looked a little awkward. Su Peijian looked at the strange expressions on their faces. What Luo Meishan had told her before seemed to have become true. She took a few steps forward and stood in front of the two of them. The corners of Su Peijian's lips curled up into a faint smile. Yusin, what are you talking about here? You're so engrossed in it that you're not even going to talk about it inside? Nothing. Su Yusin interrupted Su Peijian. We were just having a casual chat. Oh, have a casual chat. What do you want to talk about? Su Peijian turned to look at Su Qingseng. Her gaze was like an X-ray. I didn't know that you had something to talk about with a student like Yusin. Su Qingseng didn't like Su Peijian's aggressive tone, nor did she like her attitude. It's nothing. The old man was playing chess inside. We were too lazy to watch, so we came out for a walk. Let's go in now. After saying this, she glanced at Su Yusin again, signaling him to stop talking. The more he said, the more mistakes he would make. It was better not to say anything. However, this expression confirmed Su Peijian's guess. For a moment, her expression became more and more unsightly. Chapter 104. Nothing, just a casual chat. After all, Su Yusin was only a 17-year-old boy. He tried his best to act as if nothing had happened, but Su Peijian could still tell that something was wrong. What do you mean by casual chat? Yusin, be honest. What secret do you have with Su Qingseng that I can't know? Why are you being so mysterious? What's so mysterious? Su Yusin didn't like to hear that. No matter what, she's my daughter, right? We're sister and brother. What's wrong with a chat? Sister and brother? Su Peijian's face darkened. Su Qingseng was an illegitimate daughter. Raising her was already a great blessing. What right did she have to call Su Yusin sister and brother? Isn't that right? Su Yusin looked at his sister's face and didn't want to say more. Okay, I got it. I'll go in now. Su Peijian had never treated her younger brother like this before. Her breath was stuck in her throat, and she felt very uncomfortable. She was the daughter of heaven. Her parents loved her, and everyone around her adored her. Even Su Yusin had to be a stone's throw away from her parents. This was the first time Su Yusin had spoken to her in such an impatient tone. How could Su Peijian bear it? While eating, Su Qingseng found that Su Peijian looked at her from time to time. She was a little confused. She thought of her conversation with Su Yusin in the garden. Su Peijian must have suspected something. Here, honey, eat this. Hua Jinyao picked up a piece of fish and put it in Su Qingseng's bowl. She turned around, and Hua Jinyao was smiling brightly at her, showing his white teeth. When she turned her head again, she found that the Su family's eyes were on her. She felt more and more uncomfortable. Okay, I can eat it myself. This beef is good too. Hua Jinyao picked up another piece of food for her, as if he couldn't feel other people's gazes. Enough. I can take it. Su Qingseng hurriedly stopped him. This person was really too much. Couldn't he look at the situation? I know you can, but I like to take food for you. Hua Jinyao said it with a calm face, as if taking food for her was something that made him happy. Su Qingseng's heart warmed when she met his eyes. She didn't feel comfortable staying in the Su family. Naturally, she didn't dare to reveal her preferences or anything else. All these years, whenever she ate with the Su family, she would only eat the dishes in front of her. For so many years, no one had noticed what she was doing. She didn't expect that Hua Jinyao would notice it after sitting beside her for a while. Su Peijian's face darkened. In the past, Qiu Yanbao would also come to celebrate the festival. However, he had gone on a business trip these few days. not to mention having a reunion dinner with them. Even their enemies were not present. Seeing Hua Jinniao being so attentive to Su Qingsang, the only thought in her mind was that the two of them were deliberately showing off their affection. Another thing was that he was more guarded against Su Qingsang. Hua Jinniao didn't know Su Qingsang well before, but he cared about her so much. Now it seemed that she had really underestimated her good sister in the past. Not only Su Peijian, but Old Master Li and the others also had different expressions on their faces. Especially Old Master Li. He had been in power for a long time, and had dealt with Hua Mingguang of Rong City. According to the information he had received, Hua Jinniao should be Hua Mingguang's son. Not only did he hide his identity and hide in this small Lin city, but he also suddenly married his cheap granddaughter. Chapter 105. Thinking of Hua Jinniao's playing style, Old Master Li's brows knitted together again. Honey, have some soup. Unlike the others who were either sizing him up or looking at him with inquisitive eyes, Hua Jinniao was much more at ease. She didn't know what he was thinking. One moment, he was putting food into Su Qingsang's bowl, and the next moment, he was pouring soup for her. Su Qingsang felt very uncomfortable, but Hua Jinniao didn't care about how others looked at him. In the end, Su Qingsang simply pretended that she didn't see it and didn't care about other people's gazes. Su Peijian felt that the two of them were very intimate. She subconsciously glanced at Su Yusen again. Seeing that he seemed relieved because of Hua Jinniao's action, she became more and more anxious. Just like that, the meal ended with everyone having different thoughts. After dinner, they were supposed to admire the moon together, but the weather wasn't good today. Although it wasn't raining, the sky was filled with dark clouds. Not even the shadow of the moon could be seen. Seeing that, Su Qingsang and Hua Jinniao stood up together and said goodbye. Old Master Li glanced at Su Qinghui and gestured for him to follow him to the study. Su Yusen went back to his room. Su Peijian stepped forward, hooked her arm around Li Qianshui's, and gestured for her to follow her to the garden outside to admire the moon. Admire the moon? There's no moon. I saw it coming out. Mom, come here. Su Peijian didn't care. She dragged Li Qianxue outside and sat down on the swing in the garden. It was very quiet at this moment. The servant left after serving the refreshments and tea. Only then did Su Peijian tell Li Qianxue what she had discovered. Is that so? Li Qianshue's brows furrowed. She was over 40 years old, but she looked like she was in her early 30s. Her face was stern. Are you sure? Of course I'm sure. Su Peijian was furious at the thought of Su Yusen's behavior. My brother has been obedient since he was young. He didn't care about Su Qingsang at all. Why did the two of them get involved when she got married? This is too strange. Mom. Su Peijian held Li Qianshue's arm and said, we raised her for more than 20 years. We thought she was easy to deal with. Who would have thought that it would nurture her ambition? What an ingrate. You don't have to worry about this for now. Li Qianxue thought about the information she had received. I've been watching him for so many years. He didn't cause any trouble. There's no reason I can't catch her now. Mom, of course I believe you, but Yusen, you're just a kid. What do you know? A cold glint flashed across Li Qianshue's eyes. When the college entrance examination is over, no matter which school he gets into, let him study abroad. As for Su Qingsang, Li Qianxue didn't do anything to Su Qingsang before, because she didn't think it was necessary. However, if Su Qingsang acted recklessly and offended her, she would not be polite. All right, Li Qianxue patted Su Peijian's hand. You don't have to worry about these things. You are about to get engaged to Yamba. Your dad and I are keeping an eye on the company. You should spend more time with Yamba. Mom, don't worry. Yamba is not like those people outside. Yes. Li Qianxue returned to her room. Su Qinghui had just finished talking with Old Master Li and returned to his room. Seeing Li Qianxue enter the door, he acted as if he didn't see her. He took his pajamas and was about to enter the bathroom. Chapter 106. Su Qinghui looked at Li Qianshue's face. The usual gentleness and elegance on his face was gone. The expression on his face was colder than ever before. What does Dad want to talk to me about? Can't you go ask Dad? I'm asking you now, what's your attitude? Li Qianxue was furious when she saw him like this. Is this how you talk to your wife? I've always been like this. Didn't you already know that? Su Chenghui was nearly 50 years old, but because of his good looks, he looked like he was 40. He had a good reputation outside, whether it was his business methods or his character. But that was only in front of outsiders. Li Qianxue's chest heaved violently. Yes, she already knew. He knew it 26 years ago. Su Chenghui, let me remind you that I gave you everything you have now. Thank you for reminding me. Su Chenghui's expression was cold. I don't mind if you want to take it back. Su Chenghui. His indifferent tone successfully hurt Li Qianxue. Get out of my way. Su Chenghui didn't seem to notice Li Qianxue's expression. He walked past her and headed for the bathroom. Li Qianxue tried her best to restrain herself, but she couldn't help it. Su Chenghui, I'm telling you I won't take it back. Don't even think about divorcing me. In this life, even if I die, don't ever think about being with that woman. Su Chenghui stopped in his tracks. He turned around and looked at Li Qianxue. Let me tell you, you can only be Mrs. Su in this life. Li Qianxue watched Su Chenghui enter the bathroom. She heard the truth that she had known for a long time, and her heart was filled with not only resentment, anger, but also sadness. Yes, who would know that the eldest miss of the Li family was so arrogant? Li Qianxue, who had been loved by everyone, was living a married life with Su Chenghui in name only? Su Peijian got pregnant with Su Peijian through some tricks. Su Yusen happened to be Su Chenghui when he was drunk. Except for those 2 times, Su Chenghui didn't even bother to touch her. For more than 20 years, they had slept on the same bed, but it was as if they were strangers. All of this was because of that woman. Because that woman was no longer in Lin City. However, that woman's daughter was still an eyesore to her from time to time. Thinking about Su Peijian's words, thinking about how that woman had been stuck between her and Su Chenghui for more than 20 years, Su Qingsang. Don't blame me if it's you. If you want to blame someone, blame that shameless mother of yours. She gave birth to you, but she didn't care about you and left you behind. Just take it as paying off your mother's debt. When Su Qingsang got home, she found that the dark clouds had dispersed. She happily ran to the balcony and looked at the moon outside in a daze. Hua Jinyao went into the kitchen and poured a glass of water. He came out and put the water in her hand. Thank you. It would take an hour to get back from the Su family, and she was a little thirsty. Hua Jinyao looked at her profile in the moonlight and put his arms around her waist. Su Qingsang didn't look back. The atmosphere was tense, and she didn't want to break it. The moon is so round today. Really? Hua Jinyao glanced at the sky. Isn't it the same every year? Yes, the moon is the same every year. But people were different. Chapter 107. As he said this, Hua Jinyao narrowed his eyes. No. Who could bully her? No. Who had the time to bully her? For the Su family, although her existence made them a little uncomfortable, they were all from the upper class after all. They cared about their reputation. So why would they lower their status to make things difficult for an illegitimate daughter like her? I think Su Peijian is quite unfriendly to you. Her. Su Qingsang smiled. She doesn't like me, but she won't make things difficult for me. Hua Jinyao put his arm around her waist and turned her body around. Did you have a hard time in the Su family? He asked. Su Qingsang looked at the concern in his eyes and suddenly smiled. What? You don't think I'm a Cinderella who was abused by a stepmother, do you? Aren't you? Of course not. Su Qingsang shook her head. At most, they would ignore me. It's okay. I won't ignore you. Hua Jinyao kissed her hard on the cheek as he spoke. I can't ignore you no matter where you are. What a glib tongue. Su Qingsang didn't believe his words at all. How long had they known each other? How long had they been together? However, today was the Mid-Autumn Festival. She was still a little touched by his words. I don't believe you. How could Hua Jinyao not see it? I believe you. Thank you for thinking so highly of me. Although he said that, his expression was completely different. Are you thanking me? Hua Jinyao lowered his voice and pressed his forehead against hers. What do you want? He looked like he was up to no good. Su Qingsang instinctively wanted to escape. It's too insincere to just say thank you. Hua Jinyao picked her up. Why don't you show it with some practical actions? Hua Jinyao. She was just being polite. How could she say that? Hua Jinyao had already carried her into the room. The moment her body was placed on the bed, Su Qingsang whispered. The curtains are open. It's okay. No, it's not okay. We live high up, and there's no one across the street. But, look, the moonlight outside is so beautiful. Won't it be romantic under this kind of atmosphere? Hua Jinyao. With the curtains closed, she felt insecure. Shoo. Hua Jinyao covered her mouth with his, then moved his lips to her ear. Don't worry. No one can see it. Su Qingsang gritted her teeth and couldn't say a word. Hua Jinyao whispered into her ear. Look at the beauty under the moonlight. The more he looked at her, the more beautiful she became. Wife, why don't you try on all the pajamas I bought for you? Su Qingsang's face instantly turned as red as a cooked shrimp. I don't want. Wife. Just satisfy me. Hua Jinyao gently kissed her earlobe and coaxed her in a low voice. Su Qingsang turned her face away and decided not to talk to this guy anymore. Hua Jinyao looked at He Xiankai, who was standing in front of him. He Xianyao had come to visit with him today. Chapter 108. You are too polite, Jinyao. He Xiankai had a faint smile on his face. If your place is a small temple, then my He family is a local temple. Hua Jinyao raised his eyebrows and said with a teasing tone. So you're saying that you're here to burn incense? Yes. He Xiankai didn't deny it. Jinyao won't refuse, will he? Of course. Everyone makes money. Don't you think so? I like how straightforward you are. He Xiankai looked at He Xianyao, who had been silent, and said softly, Xianyao, introduce our plan. Okay. He Xianyao was full of confidence. She stood up and was about to introduce. Miss He, wait a minute. He called He Xiankai by his name, but called He Xianyao Miss He. It was easy to tell who was close. He Xuanyao's face suddenly darkened because of the way he addressed her. Brother Jinyao. Seeing the coldness in Hua Jinyao's eyes, she changed the way she addressed him. President Hua, this doesn't seem very nice. No. I just don't think I know Miss He that well. Hua Jinyao was willing to give He Xiankai face because he was a business rival. At least, Hua Jinyao admired his methods. But He Xianyao? Sorry. I just wanted to ask if the plan you sent this time is different from the one you sent last time. If not, you don't need to introduce it. Jinyao. If He Xiankai still couldn't sense that Hua Jinyao was picking on his sister, he would have been a fool. Xianyao is just a child. Why do you have to be so serious? Child? Hua Jinyao nodded. If she is a child, then there is no need to talk business. Isn't it better to go home and drink milk? Hua Jinyao. He Xianyao had never been humiliated like this before. She stood up immediately and was about to lose her temper. He Xiankai grabbed her arm and pressed her body down to stop her from moving. Xianyao, sit down. Brother, look at him. She was the daughter of the He family. How could Hua Jinyao humiliate her like this? It was too much. Jinyao. He Xiankai managed to maintain his good manners. The He family and the Hua family often cooperate. Isn't it inappropriate for you to do this? You said she was a child. Since I'm a kid, I naturally have to do things that only kids do. He Xiankai nodded. He finally understood. Xianyao is still young. Sometimes she doesn't speak thoughtfully. So please forgive me. But this time, it's not just our entire planning team, I'm also part of it. I'm sure you'll be satisfied. Xiankai, I'm naturally satisfied with your abilities. Hua Jinyao picked up the proposal and said, but no matter what, I have to have a meeting with the board of directors before I can make a decision. Don't you agree? Of course. He Xiankai left the contract and stood up. He Xianyao still wanted to say something, but when she met her brother's eyes, she could only nod. We'll be leaving first. He Xuankai's footsteps suddenly stopped. Right, I invited a few leaders to dinner tonight. Since Jinyao is starting to develop in Lin City now, why don't we go together? Of course. Hua Jinyao looked at He Xiankai and nodded. The two He siblings looked at each other and smiled. He Xianyao, in particular, had a flash of excitement and expectation in her eyes. Chapter 109. The He siblings decided to have their meal at Lin Yuan Pavilion. It was a very famous private restaurant in Lin City. When Hu Jinyao entered the private room, other than the He siblings, Li Junsheng was also there. Li Junsheng. He grew up with Hu Jinyao in Rong City. They were childhood friends. Unlike Hu Jinyao, who chose to go into business, Li Junsheng had been very clear about his goals since he was young. Not long after graduation, he embarked on the path of righteousness. At a young age, he became the deputy mayor. He knew that he had been transferred, but he didn't expect Li Junsheng to be transferred to Lin City. Jinyao. Li Junsheng saw Hu Jinyao enter the door and stood up first. I heard that Xiankai invited you to dinner today, but I didn't believe it. I didn't expect you to really come. That's because I knew you were here. I have to give face to others, but I have to give face to you, Hu Jinyao said courteously, but his words weren't polite at all. After shaking hands with Li Junsheng, he directly punched him on the shoulder. Keep bragging. You really give me face. I've been in Lin City for so long. Why didn't you contact me? You've wronged me. I really didn't know you came to Lin City. Hu Jinyao patted him on the shoulder. Did you get promoted again? Cousin is now the mayor of Lin City, He Xianyao said at this time, her tone extremely intimate. Li Junsheng's aunt Li Wanxiang married into the He family and was the mother of He Xiankai and his sister. Li Junsheng was indeed cousins with the two siblings who had returned home. Not bad. Hu Jinyao had always known that Li Junsheng was ambitious, but it was also impressive for him to sit in this position at such a young age. Li Junsheng smiled. He didn't need to be polite with Hu Jinyao. The group sat down. Not long after, two more people came, both from the relevant departments. Hu Jinyao originally wanted to see what the He siblings were up to. Now he felt that he was a little narrow-minded. The Hu family and the He family were separated by a layer. However, the Hu family and the Li family were real friends. He, Li Junsheng, and 6 other people in Rong City had always been called the 7 young masters of Rong City. Naturally, their relationship was not ordinary. After 3 rounds of drinking, Li Junsheng patted Hu Jinyao on the shoulder. The two of them were very familiar with each other. They could understand each other's intentions with just a glance. Taking the opportunity to smoke outside, Li Junsheng and Hu Jinyao walked to a corner. Li Junsheng took out a pack of cigarettes, took out a cigarette, and handed it to Hu Jinyao. Still not playing? That's not it. Hu Jinyao didn't smoke. You didn't come here just to catch up with me, did you? You. Li Junsheng smiled. I came here today for a mission. What mission? The first mission is naturally to help Xiankai speak up for him. You guys have been working with the He family for a long time. Why are you making things difficult for him this time? He Xiankai and his sister were Li Junsheng's cousins. However, in Li Junsheng's heart, he was still closer to Hu Jinyao. No matter what, they were still relatives. Those who wanted to help would naturally do so. I'm fine. It's just that I think they don't know what's important. Can't tell what's important? What do you mean? When I didn't want Rong City, your cousin made a big move. He had looked for Hu Yifan several times. Tell me, should I argue with him? Hu Jinyao's voice was indifferent, but this sentence made Li Junsheng understand what he meant. Chapter 110. Li Junsheng knew what was going on, and didn't try to persuade him anymore. Just pretend I didn't say anything. But you have to give her a chance. It's okay. Hu Jinyao smiled. For your sake, I'll let bygones be bygones. You. After that, Li Junsheng thought of something else. There's one more thing. I didn't want to say it. Then don't say it. Hu Jinyao didn't give him any face. You. Li Junsheng wanted to punch him. You don't want me to say it, so I'll say it. This cousin of mine. Stop. Hu Jinyao interrupted him. I'm married. No way. Really? Li Junsheng was shocked. You're not lying to me, because you don't want to be with my cousin, are you? Li Junsheng knew that Hu Jinyao had no feelings for He Xianyao. However, Li Wanxiang was his aunt, and she was his biological aunt. When she asked him to rub it, She only said that she wanted him to try it. He had to say it. But he didn't expect it. Hua Jinyao was married. Yes, I'm married. So suddenly? Which celestial being could make young Master Hua fall in love with her and jump into the grave of marriage? You said it's a fairy. Of course it's a fairy. Thinking of Su Qingsang, Hua Jinyao's expression softened. Li Junxing looked at him as if he was an alien. But he finally accepted the truth. Okay. It seems you found the woman of your dreams. In that case, I won't say anything about my cousin. Find a chance next time and bring her out. I'll meet her. Okay. Hua Jinyao agreed quickly, but he suddenly thought of something. Li Junxing was the mayor of Lin City now. If he introduced him to Su Qingsang, how could he explain that he and the mayor were childhood friends? What's wrong? Nothing. Hua Jinyao shook his head. He finally had a headache. Su Qingsang didn't know his identity, so he believed everything he said. But he seemed to have told too many lies one after another. If Su Qingsang found out in the future. When Hua Jinyao returned to the private room, he couldn't help but look worried. Right now, he had to think carefully about how to smooth things over with Su Qingsang. Unfortunately, He Xiankai and the others couldn't see the change in his emotions. Especially He Xianyao. She thought that her cousin could persuade Hua Jinyao. She was waiting to have sex with Hua Jinyao tonight. She was so happy that she gestured for her brother to toast Hua Jinyao from time to time. Li Junxing got married because of Hua Jinyao, and he was transferred to Lin City, so he would be with Hua Jinyao again. He also drank a few more cups. Since the mayor had already started drinking, the remaining few naturally didn't want to be left behind. As a result, a group of people took turns toasting Hua Jinyao. At that moment, Hua Jinyao was wondering if Su Qingsang would be angry after finding out about the true would I. After a while he got drunk. Seeing that Hua Jinyao was drunk, He Xuanyao's eyes lit up. When the group of people was almost drunk, she followed her brother, who was relatively sober, to support Hua Jinyao. As for her cousin, he still had some sense. He called a waiter to send him upstairs to rest. Chapter 111. He Xianyao and He Xiankai helped Hua Jinyao, who was drunk, to his room upstairs. I can still drink. Hua Jinyao's vision blurred. Mixing a few kinds of alcohol was the most intoxicating. He patted He Xuankai's shoulder. Junxing, come. Drink more. I haven't congratulated you yet. You're drunk. Let me help you to the bed. He Xiankai couldn't say much now. He was afraid that Hua Jinyao would react if he said too much. I'm not drunk. I'm really not drunk. Hua Jinyao waved his hand and began to walk backward. How can this little amount of alcohol make me drunk? You're really drunk. Drunk, I'm not drunk. Hua Jinyao waved his hand, but his body softened and he fell forward. He Xiankai hurriedly helped Hua Jinyao to the bed. He Xianyao helped. First, she took off Hua Jinyao's shoes and then, brother, you can go out now. Xianyao, brother, just go out. I know what I'm doing. He Xiankai stood still and looked at Hua Jinyao, who closed his eyes as soon as he touched the bed. He was obviously dead drunk. He turned to look at his sister. Xianyao, do you really want to do this? He's already married. Brother, it's not like you didn't see how he treated me during the day. He Xianyao bit her lip. Her beautiful face was full of grievance. If I don't do this, when will Hua Jinyao ever see me? But if you do this, he won't see you. He Xiankai was a man. Did a man love a woman? Did he have feelings for her? The look in his eyes couldn't lie. If he doesn't see me, then I'll find a way to make him see me. He Xianyao pushed He Xiankai. All right, you can go out now. He Xiankai was helpless. He had thought that his sister wanted to take advantage of the plan to accept Hua Jinyao. He Xianyao had a good idea. She wanted Hua Jinyao to see her ability and find out that she was the most suitable person for him. She didn't expect that Hua Jinyao wouldn't give her any face. There were a few times when they talked about cooperation, but he chased her away before she could even finish her sentence. How could He Xianyao, who had always been proud and had never been taken advantage of, endure such humiliation? She couldn't take this lying down, so she came up with this trick. He Xiankai knew it wasn't good for his sister to be like this, but he couldn't overcome He Xuanyao's stubbornness. He Xianyao chased her brother away. Her eyes were full of love as she looked at Hu Jinyao, who was sleeping soundly on the bed. Brother Jinyao, after today you'll be mine. As she spoke, she began to take off Hu Jinyao's clothes without any shyness. Hu Jinyao was there to entertain guests, so he was dressed very formally. Suit shirt. He Xianyao rarely did things like this, so her movements were a bit rusty. It took her a long time to remove Hu Jinyao's suit jacket. At that moment, the phone in Hu Jinyao's pocket rang. He Xianyao was startled by the ringtone. Seeing that Hu Jinyao didn't wake up, she quickly took out her phone. The word wife on the screen almost pierced He Xianyao's eyes. Wife, wife. The position of wife was supposed to be hers, but it was taken away by an illegitimate daughter who couldn't be seen in public. How could she not be angry? How could she not hate? Her eyes were full of anger as she stared at the screen. She held the phone and was about to hang up when she suddenly changed her mind. Chapter 112. Su Qingseng received a call from Hu Jinyao when she got off work that day. He said that he had a business meeting today and wouldn't pick her up. He asked her to go home by herself. She was about to leave, but the patient with PIH that she had picked up earlier started to move. She was the first doctor to receive the patient, so she naturally went into the operating room with Zhang Qiubai. When the operation was over, she looked at the time and found that it was getting late. She remembered that Hu Jinyao said that he had a business meeting. Su Qingseng wanted to see if he was done. If not, he would come and pick her up. She didn't know where Hu Jinyao worked, but she knew that it wouldn't be too far from the hospital. The place wouldn't be too far from his company, would it? The phone was connected, but a woman's voice came from the other side. Ah. Yes. Jinyao, you're great. Yes. Ah. Be gentle. Be gentle. Su Qingseng was stunned by the sudden voice. She blinked her eyes and thought for a moment that she had called the wrong number. She took the phone away from her ear and looked at it again. It was indeed Hu Jinyao. The name she saved was Dear Husband. Hu Jinyao took her phone and changed this name, which made her feel nauseous. Su Qingseng pressed the speakerphone, and the voice on the other side of the phone became louder. Ah yes, Jinyao, be gentle, be gentle. Jinyao. It's me. Ah. The sound of in lingered on. Su Qingseng's expression changed slightly. After listening for a while, her expression suddenly changed. Hu Jinyao. She called, but there was no response. The voice on the other side of the phone seemed to have stopped. Su Qingseng knew what was going on and called again. Hu Jinyao. There was still no response. Su Qingseng stood up. Who are you? Why do you have Jinyao's phone? Hearing the heavy breathing on the other side of the phone, Su Qingseng sneered. Let Hu Jinyao answer the phone. What? You have time to sleep with a woman of unknown origin, but you don't have time to answer the phone call of your legal wife? Hu Jinyao answer the phone. Su Qingseng's voice was a few decibels higher than before. On the other side of the phone, the screams were even more exaggerated than before. Soon after, the call was hung up. Su Qingseng sneered and stared at the phone that had already been hung up. For the first time, a cold expression flashed across her beautiful face. While typing on the screen, Su Qingseng quickly picked up her bag and keys and went out. While waiting for the elevator, she bumped into Sister Wang, who lived next door. Su Qingseng didn't even have time to greet her before she directly entered the elevator and pressed the button for the first floor. She called Shi Mengwan as she walked. She didn't have many friends. They were either doctors or nurses. However, Shi Mengwan knew 2 police officers. Su Qingseng found Hu Jinyao's location according to the GPS and asked the waiter to open the door under the pressure of the police. What she saw was Hu Jinyao sleeping on the hotel bed unconscious. Only his upper body was barely covered. There was also the woman he had seen once before. At this moment, he was pulling the quilt up to cover his body, looking at her with a smug and provocative expression. Clothes were scattered all over the ground, and there was a faint smell of alcohol in the air. Taking a deep breath, Su Qingseng turned around and smiled at Shi Mengwan's 2 police officers. Thank you for today. He has been found. Thank you for making this trip. You're welcome. The two police officers had a good relationship with Shi Mengwan. They were happy to help with this kind of small favor. Su Qingseng thanked them and watched them leave. Only then did she turn around and face everything in the room. Chapter 113. It was He Xuanyao's first time doing something like this. She was a little nervous, but she was more excited. In her opinion, a woman like Su Qingseng was no match for her. Inside and out, there was no place that could compare to hers. She was just too nervous. She didn't expect that Su Qingseng would see through her purposeful voice. Frightened, she quickly hung up the phone. But after hanging up the phone, she felt that something was wrong. Why was she nervous? Why was she scared? Hua Jinyao was lying in the same bed as her. She only needed to wait until tomorrow, and He Xiankai would come in with his men. If someone found out that Hua Jinyao was sleeping with her, it would be impossible for him not to take responsibility for her. But she didn't expect that Su Qingseng would come to the hotel directly and ask a waiter to open the door for her. He Xianyao didn't expect that either, so she didn't have time to stop her. No, she couldn't stop her. After all, she was in a sorry state right now. But when Su Qingseng closed the door, she had calmed down. What are you doing here? Even though she was nervous, He Xianyao tried to look calm. Do you know that I can call the police if you barge in like this? You want to call the police? Su Qingseng smiled. The two people who just left are policemen. Do you want me to call them back for you? He Xianyao didn't look happy, but she was sure that Su Qingseng was lying. Jinyao is asleep. If you don't have anything else, please leave. Jinyao is my husband. Why should I leave? Su Qingseng put her bag on the table next to the hotel and looked calm. Jinyao doesn't want you anymore. If you're smart, get out of here. He Xianyao said it with such confidence that Su Qingseng almost laughed. She really laughed and walked towards the bed as she laughed. The expression on her face was so strange that He Xianyao couldn't figure out what she wanted to do. What do you want? You said that Jinyao doesn't want me anymore. Of course, He Xianyao said matter-of-factly. Jinyao just said that he was blind in the past. He doesn't know what's good for him. I'm the one that he's most satisfied with. And you're nothing more than someone who can't even be put on the table. He's just using you as a distraction. Oh, really? Of course. He Xianyao said. Jinyao said you're like a dead fish in bed. You can't satisfy him at all. I'm his favorite. You. Me what? Say it. Why aren't you saying anything? Su Qingseng stood by the bed and looked at He Xianyao. She looked nervous, guilty and scared. Held out his hand to her. Ah! He Xianyao screamed. But she didn't have time to stop her. The quilt on her slid down. You crazy woman, you. Su Qingseng didn't even look at her but glanced at Hua Jinyao. His clothes had been stripped by He Xianyao. He was drunk, so he was lying on the bed unconscious. Su Qingseng glanced at it and suddenly laughed. She turned to look at He Xianyao. You said that Jinyao is very satisfied with you? Of course. Is this how I am satisfied with you? Chapter 114. Sneering, Su Qingseng straightened up and casually covered Hua Jinyao with the quilt. After the examination, his body was hers. She didn't want other women to see it. When did she have this idea? Su Qingseng didn't want to think about it now. There were more important things to do. Although He Xianyao didn't have much experience, she wasn't a naive girl. She immediately understood what Su Qingseng meant. She blushed and said, You're shameless. Who's shameless? Su Qingseng crossed her arms in front of her chest and glanced at He Xianyao. You took off your clothes and slept with a man. He's already dead drunk and has no reaction at all. Yet you can still scream so loudly, as if you're being raped. Who do you think is shameless? She was good-tempered and didn't want to argue with others. But that didn't mean she was stupid. He Xuanyao's idea was good. But her acting was so bad that she didn't feel any sense of accomplishment, even if she saw through it. You. He Xianyao was from a big family, so she didn't know how to curse. But Su Qingseng's words made her unable to fight back. Me what? Su Qingseng glanced at Hua Jinyao. You don't even know what he looks like in bed. And you're making a scene in front of me? She thought of Hua Jinyao's usual nonsense in bed. as well as his outrageous thoughts. Su Qingsang blushed a little. She didn't really ask Hua Jinyao to have sex with her. How would she know what he looked like in bed? You what? Su Qingsang wasn't in the mood to continue acting. You can't even continue acting. What? Why aren't you leaving? Why should I leave? Yi Xuanyao's neck was red. She looked embarrassed, but she refused to admit defeat. Hua Jinyao had sex with me just now. He has to be responsible for me. I'm not leaving. Are you sure? Of course. Yi Xuanyao couldn't help but sound guilty. But she wouldn't let it go like this. Su Qingsang nodded to show that she understood. Are you sure you want Hua Jinyao to be responsible for you? What else? Is he going to deny it? Yi Xuanyao had never been so stubborn. Even if she had a guilty conscience now. But why should she admit defeat in front of an illegitimate daughter, who couldn't even be seen in public? All right. Not bad. Su Qingsang nodded to show that she understood. He took out his phone and glanced at Yi Xuanyao. Hua Jinyao and I are legally married, and we've received our marriage certificate. And now he's having sex with you. In other words, either that or he was guilty of bigamy. Either that or rape. Since it's a crime, I can only call the police. You're crazy. Yi Xuanyao didn't expect Su Qingsang to be so unpredictable. He didn't rape me. Not rape? Su Qingsang's face was full of understanding. They cheated on each other during marriage. Having a relationship with another woman was considered immoral, right? Since that was the case, that would also require reporting to the police. At the very least, he should be locked up for 3 to 5 months as punishment. Don't you agree? Are you crazy? He is your husband. Yi Xuanyao didn't know what to say. How could this woman be like this? Chapter 115. Su Qingsang laughed at Yi Xuanyao's strange way of thinking. You know he's my husband? You know he's my husband, and you want him to take responsibility for you? If he wants to take responsibility for you, then it can only be bigamy. Yi Xuanyao had completely caught up with Su Qingsang's thoughts. You can divorce him. If he takes responsibility for me after you divorce, then it won't be bigamy, right? I don't want to. Su Qingsang refused without thinking. Why should I divorce him? Would it be easy for you two to get divorced? Don't even think about it. If you want him to take responsibility for you, I will never let him. Of course, if he wants to take responsibility for you too, then I can only sue him for bigamy. You are shameless. Yi Xuanyao couldn't find the words to scold her. Thank you. If defending my rights is shameless, I will take it as a compliment. Yi Xuanyao was flustered. Why would Brother Jinyao like a woman like you? He must not know your true colors. You are such a vicious woman. She even wanted Brother Jinyao to go to jail. That was too much. Yes, I am that vicious, but I can't help it. Hua Jinyao liked my viciousness, but he didn't like your kindness. Speaking of which, I'm also puzzled. Her helpless look made Yi Xuanyao want to vomit blood. You don't go too far. She was about to cry. She had never been so humiliated in her life. However, she couldn't find a way to fight back. She only felt that whatever she said would be wrong. What if I were you? I will pack my clothes now and leave. Of course, you can stay if you don't want to leave. When Hua Jinyao wakes up, he will tell you with facts whether he will choose me, a vicious woman, or you, a kind little white flower. Her sarcastic tone made Yi Xuanyao's heart hurt. She was angry and wronged. Unfortunately, she wasn't wearing any clothes. She was in this state again. She looked at Su Qingsang, who was standing by the bed with her arms crossed. She was ashamed, angry, hateful, and annoyed. In the end, he had to get out of bed and pick up his clothes. Su Qingsang watched as she hurriedly put on her clothes. Her eyes were red, but she didn't feel any sympathy for her. She glanced at Hua Jinyao, who had been sleeping without any reaction. She was angry. He's such a big man. But he doesn't look stupid normally, right? How could he be so easily schemed against? Or could it be that he was interested in this peacock-like woman who liked to show off? Otherwise, with that woman's frail body, how could she bring him upstairs? To put it bluntly, he had to be willing. The more she thought about it, the angrier she got. She even had the urge to fetch a basin of cold water to wake him up. However, she wasn't stupid. She knew that she had to wait until He Xianyao left. If she did it now, He Xianyao would laugh at her. He Xianyao put on her clothes as fast as she could. She stood there ready to leave. However, she was unwilling to leave just like that. She turned to look at Su Qingsang. Her face was still angry, but there was a hint of reluctance on it. Don't be smug. A person like you isn't good enough for Big Brother Jinyao. I will definitely snatch him back. Just you wait. Sure. I'll wait. Su Qingsang spread her hands and looked indifferent. You can talk big after you really snatch him back. For now, I am still his wife, the legitimate Mrs. Hua. Su Qingsang's emphasis on the word, Mrs. Hua, made He Xianyao feel defeated again. She had been holding back her emotions, but now she couldn't control them anymore. You bad woman. Chapter 116. The sound of crying and the door slamming seemed to make Hu Jinyao, who was drunk, sober up. His body moved, and his hand subconsciously reached to the side. Su Qingsang's hand happened to be next to him. Hu Jinyao grabbed her hand, and she lost her balance and fell into his arms. Hu Jinyao. Su Qingsang thought that Hu Jinyao had woken up, so she tried to prop herself up and get even with him. Hu Jinyao opened his eyes in a daze, then closed them again to see who was in front of him. He kissed her on the face with his lips that reeked of alcohol. When Su Qingsang couldn't stand it anymore and wanted to hit him, he rubbed his head against her neck. Wife! That was what he had gotten used to these days. Su Qingsang's body slightly froze. She stopped moving and looked up at Hu Jinyao in front of her. He was not sober yet, and his body reeked of alcohol. She hated it when men were drunk. She also didn't like it when Hu Jinyao was brought to a hotel by a woman without any precaution. But the way he called her wife made her heart, which had softened a little, stop flinching. Hu Jinyao reached out and tightened his arms around Su Qingsang's waist. He rubbed his cheek against Su Qingsang's neck again. Wife! Su Qingsang finally stopped moving after murmuring the two words in a low voice. She sighed in her heart and spoke in a very low voice. Hu Jinyao, you really know how to cause trouble. Messing with a person like He Xianyao was really... She looked down and thought of some problems. She suddenly looked up at Hu Jinyao. He Xianyao and Xiao Junjia were friends, which meant that her family was not bad. So why did she keep looking at Hu Jinyao? The strange feeling from before came again. Su Qingsang looked at Hu Jinyao carefully. A person like He Xianyao would not fall for an ordinary person. So who was Hu Jinyao? She remembered that although she couldn't tell the brand of his clothes, the quality and workmanship were excellent. And the expensive gifts he bought for Su Qinghui and Li Qinxue last time, and the diamond ring he bought for her, and the clothes he took her to buy, and all the signs added up, and the previous suspicion came back again. Su Qingsang suddenly felt a little unhappy. Without thinking, she pushed Hu Jinyao away. Drunk, he didn't have much strength, and was successfully pushed away by her. As soon as Hu Jinyao's body left her, she got up. She wanted to leave, but after staring at Hu Jinyao's sleeping face for a while, she finally turned around and went to the bathroom. When Hu Jinyao woke up, he had a headache. He hadn't experienced this hangover in a long time. He raised his hand and rubbed his temples. A few thoughts flashed through his mind. The air conditioner was a little low, but that wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was that he didn't seem to be wearing any clothes. Not wearing any clothes. He suddenly opened his eyes and looked at his body, then at the environment in front of him. They were not at home, not in Su Qingsang's apartment. This is a hotel? He remembered that he had met Li Junxing yesterday. He had a good relationship with Li Junxing. The two of them met in another city, so they got a little drunk after a while. What happened next? His last impression was that He Xiankai and He Xianyao had gotten close to him. Hu Jinyao's face suddenly turned cold. It seemed that he had been too careless. He hadn't expected Li Junxing to be present, and the He siblings still dared to attack him. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference. As it's the primary source of revenue, that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.